Before we begin, in the spirit of reconciliation and respect, the InkGuild acknowledges that we live, work, and play on the traditional Treaty 7 territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Guyanese, Piikani, as well as the Stoney Nakoda and the Tsuut'ina nations. This territory is also home to the Métis nations of Alberta, Region 3 within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. Finally, we acknowledge all Indigenous and non-Indigenous to honor and celebrate this territory alongside us.
Yes, Tyler from the past is here, and he is a cringy motherfucker.
Oh, he's here right now. What? That's it. Is he going to be speaking in an accent and everything?
No, I never spoke in fucking accent. At least I didn't fucking try.
You never did. That would have sealed it. That would have been the beautiful cherry on top. If you did like a Texan accent throughout your high school years.
Now, to be fair, I can do one. I do have a few good southern draws that I can put on, but they are mostly used for Dungeons and Dragons. Not for any specific purpose of my own fantasy and wish fulfillment. Because I do have a rich aunt and uncle in Texas, and boy, let me tell you, spending a week there, it is hard not to talk like this. It is so emphatic and fun, and they have guns, and it is terrifying to be outside of there.
Oh, I see another fellow of Southern persuasion. The Dean, this is the cowboy episode now.
Oh boy. I did not plan to host a cowboy episode.
Me and Gabe are now talking about westerns.
Okay.
You never planned to host a cowboy episode. A cowboy episode just comes your way.
I'm signing out of the cowboy episode. Good night.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hey there.
Bonjour. My name is Dean, and welcome back to the InkGuild podcast. Just go to fucking therapy.
Don't correct me. I don't care.
Need to start a revolution.
I'm going to fucking explode if I don't say this by now.
She would challenge them to a double dutch.
I'm going to summon up his spirit to fix all of this up for me.
You didn't have good enough tea and or comic books, so.
And you know what? I'm going to say it.
All of them are fucking idiots.
Simply everyone is taking cocaine.
Just say your morning routine.
You're replicant breathe.
I'm so excited to find out if Jughead got abducted by aliens or not.
Boneless.
Is your refrigerator running? Better go get it then.
Hello, everybody. My name's Marie-Soleil, and welcome to the InkGuild podcast. Dean is here, but I've taken over for tonight while we're going to talk about time travel. You've got me, Tyler.
Bonjour.
Dean.
Hello.
Alex. Hello. Gabe.
Hello.
And Brooke.
Hi.
So I want to talk a little bit about the history of time travel as a genre, and I'm not overtly versed in it, but I just thought it was interesting. One of the first and most well-known types of time travel or time travel stories is H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it actually coined the name Time Machine. And I'm sure like time travel was used as a story element before that, but like this is the most recognized piece, and it's been, I want to say, expanded upon multiple times. There was a novel that spawned a movie that spawned a TV series called Time After Time, where Jack the Ripper stole H.G. Wells' time machine and ended up in the future.
Because we need to add Jack the Ripper to everything, but anyways.
Yeah.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how else do you explain him not getting caught besides him going to the future in a time machine?
The amount of people that have danced around Jack the Ripper in the stories is actually amazing. But we're not here to talk about him.
Mm-hmm.
Has anyone else ever read The Time Machine? Because I have a long time ago.
I
read it for a science fiction course a couple years back.
What was that, Dean? Were you agreeing or disagreeing?
Disagreeing. I have not read it.
So, it's a dinner party that some inventors like, hey guys, I built a time machine. And everyone's like, no, you fucking didn't. And he's like, yes, I did. Come back to the next dinner party and I'll show you it worked. And he comes back to the next dinner party and he's like, I traveled to the future. Again, with, I'm pretty sure, like, no proof. But hey, it's a story. Did you read it? I can't remember.
I've read it a while ago, or I read an excerpt from it.
Like, I like it because H.G. Wells basically looked at the whole time travel problem, was like, could he go back into the past? But what if he changes something? Wouldn't that change the future? I can't fuck with that. Let's just have him go to the future and come back. He basically looked at past time travel and was like, that's too complicated. We're not gonna do that. And so said, fuck it. Which is a good way of going about time travel, in my opinion.
Yeah, probably.
And there are so many different types of time travel and different, like, and I'm talking about like the science behind time travel. And yes, I'm using air quotes on science because it's not real. Like, we haven't actually been able to time travel, but a lot of stories go through like wormhole theories, and some of them just go straight up magic time travel. There's some where you're born able to travel through time, and Doctor Who is an alien race that can travel through time with a box. Don't attack me for not knowing anything about Doctor Who.
I love Doctor Who.
Oh, good. We have a movie in here.
I had a roommate who watched Doctor Who, so I don't really know much about it. I dated a British guy, and he loved Doctor Who, but like... It's true.
What a funny sentence. I don't know why.
Osmosis. I've learned Doctor Who through osmosis. And I just think it's so interesting that this is just a topic that everybody wants to use, wants to talk about, but we all find different ways to explain it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, among, like, time travel
Among Us?
stories, there's
What?
always...
I was waiting for it.
So, in a lot of time travel stories that I'm familiar with, there's always at least constant rules. More particular when you're traveling into the past, like, literally don't do anything. It'll have, like, overarching effects into the future or into your present. And, like, that's, I think, the one constant that I'm familiar with when it comes to time travel stories. I'm not familiar with, like, ones that travel into the future, but maybe others have, or maybe others are more familiar with that.
Back to the Future? Does Back to the Future even go to the future? I don't actually know. I've never seen that movie either.
Yes. I know it goes into the past.
One of them goes to the future.
I think the second.
Yes.
Because one of them definitely goes to the past, but one of them also goes to the future.
So in the first one, he goes to the past and meets his parents as kids, and then I think he goes to the future to save his son from doing something stupid, and then in another one, he goes to like the Wild West.
Yeah. What?
Yeah, time travel's wild.
Yeah. There's a time traveling train.
And those movies are very confusingly named.
And even in like Back to the Future, which is one of the most well-known time travel movie series, they have, it's complete bullshit science, but they've got science for how it works with the flux capacitor that Dr. Brown created, and how he had to use like plutonium or uranium,
one of the radioactive ones,
something radioactive, to control his time machine that was a sports car.
Yeah, can we talk about the different types of time machines? I've seen sports cars. I've seen an actual weird ball thing in the Time Machine movie. There's also Hot Tub Time Machine, which I don't know if anyone else watched. That's a wild movie.
Hot Tub Time Machine.
Where, you know,
I have not watched it, but I have heard of it.
Don't watch it.
Wasn't planning on it. Thanks.
Great when I was like 15 or 16, but yeah, that'll tell you all you need to know.
And then you've got Supernatural has 2 different episodes where they do time travel. One episode where they go to the past and one episode where they go to the future.
Oh my god.
Are there only 2? I feel like there's more than that.
I was gonna say
there's more. Yeah, there are more where they go to the past and they see their parents at one point.
There's that one. There's also one where there's the cowboy episode.
Yeah. There's the cowboy episode. There's the episode where they have to protect their parents from the angels that want to kill their parents so that they aren't born.
Yeah.
And there's one where Dean goes to the future after like the apocalypse happens.
Right. Yeah.
Not me, Gabe.
Yeah, not our Dean.
Dean Winchester.
Me, I'm just time traveling.
Dean, you were on Supernatural? What? Actually, I wouldn't be surprised. There's so many episodes now.
True.
Congratulations on your acting career.
Thank you.
And also on the time travel.
Thank you.
But now that I've blurbed about just time travel in general, do we want to all share like our favorite type of time travel?
I like.
Okay. So how about I'll define the 3 main types of time travel and then we'll go through. So there is the fixed timeline when everything happens like the way it's meant to. So like the for example in Terminator where what is John's father's name?
Isn't it Kyle?
Kyle Reese.
Kyle Reese is sent to the past to protect the mother Sarah. It's been a while since I watched that movie. And he ends up being John's father. And so it had to have happened like that for John to have been born. It's a fixed timeline. By going back by going to the past, he allowed the events of the future to happen. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool. There's the dynamic timeline, which is where we get paradox issues, where when you go to the past, you change an event, which stops you from going to the past, which reverses the event you changed.
If you allow the paradox to complete its circle.
Yeah, if you allow it to complete the circle. So, like, if I went to the past and stopped myself from being born, then I would never have had the opportunity to go to the past and stop myself from being born. So I'm born. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, and then there's the multiverse time travel, where every time you go to the past and you change the past, it spawns a multiverse of different events happening. And I think that's how the MCU explained Endgame. I think.
I've never watched it. I'm never going to. So
yeah.
I think it's how they explained it in Endgame and then they expanded on that in Loki.
Yeah.
With the variants and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, personally, I love the cyclical, the fixed timeline. There is no more favorite time travel trope of mine than someone goes back into the past to change a specific event, but everything goes just wrong or just right, so that they're never actually able to change the certain event, and every bit of plot is completely contrived to make sure that their time travel effort is completely unsuccessful. I don't know why. It's both the peak of comedy and the peak of drama for me. I'm going to go back in time and change the past. All right, but a future you has already gone back in time and tried to change it and failed, so you're just going to be stuck in this fucking loop. I love it. I absolutely love it.
I think fixed time travel stories of just going back to the past are probably the ones that I can keep up with the best. Like when you're starting to unlock paradoxes and a multiverse, that's when it's just too much, I think. And some people can keep up with it, and most of the time I prefer not to, because holy shit, that's a lot more to think about.
Yeah, I also prefer cyclical ones, just because I think, like, I really like when you're like watching or like engaging with a story and you have all these like little things happening and then that like aren't really explained, and then the characters like go back, and then it like all the pieces kind of like fall into place, and you're like, oh, that's why that happened. That's always so satisfying to me.
It is. It is.
Brooke, we haven't heard from you.
Hello, microphone. Okay, thank you. I think I like fixed because the ones that I picked are the fixed timeline thing, but I do really enjoy these that have like a video game-esque feel where the character just like keeps looping through time, starting at the same point, trying to progress to the end point and seeing struggles along the way. Like I don't love Edge of Tomorrow, but I kind of like Edge of Tomorrow, and it does that kind of thing.
Agreed. It's okay. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. You know, just like it's just one of those things where it's just fun. You just watch it and you're like, yes, you're getting further every time. Good job. I can watch this.
And what about you, Gabe?
I think that like dynamic time travel can get really fucky with paradoxes and stuff. So like most of the time I do prefer fixed, but I think in like the few instances where like there's a time travel story that has like a non-fixed sort of time travel thing happening and like you can actually change the past, but there's no but it manages to tell it in a way where it's like it's not confusing and it doesn't fuck with your brain too much. I love that shit. I dig that shit so much. I have an example I'm going to get to when we get to that portion of this that just tickles my brain.
Nice.
So
brain
like,
tickling.
I think we all agree that Cyclical is kind of the best per se. What do you think? What's your favorite?
I feel like cyclical or fixed timelines are really interesting but I really like the dynamic timelines and to an extent the multiverse time travel because it means that your impacts, your choices, your actions have consequences and impact. So if you go back in time and you stop somebody from eating something, it's going to have consequences on the future, and it makes for a more interesting story in my mind. Because if I were to be able to go to the past and do whatever I want and it's not going to change anything, what's the point of going to the past?
It's kind of the agency over fulfillment idea, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think I like the multiverse as well for that aspect, and also because like I like reading different versions of characters. Like multiverse time travel reminds me of like the different types of comic books that you can get, because it's normally like one aspect of the character is different between these, and it's completely changed their futures in these different timelines.
I do think multiverse stuff can be like really, really fun. It just gets so complicated so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would definitely say that. What's your name on the Discord again? Yeah, definitely.
I don't know how they do it.
I don't know how they do it.
I think
so.
Oh, sorry, Tyler, go ahead.
I just wanted to talk about the multiverses for a moment. I do like the multiverse one because it can get really dark and fucked up if you think about the reasons why someone is leaving their part of the multiverse, but at the same time, though we're talking about it with time travel because it has a similar effect of time travel.
Yeah.
In essence, it's not. It's dimensional travel. Right?
That's true.
And I'm still more than okay with talking about it with time travel because, again, the effect and the story premise and like the tool it is used for is very similar, right? But again, essence-wise, if we're talking about a multiverse, they're not happening at different times. They're all happening at the same time, right? Which is why I prefer multiverse and cyclical as opposed to linear myself. They're the ones that would be, in my opinion, the most sense made for a fantasy concept. And I know I'm a cynic about these things, but hey.
I think like for... And I don't know if you guys agree with me, but just when it comes to multiverse time travel stories, it only really makes sense if it's like a franchise that has been putting like that has enough lore and interest in it to make it work, like Terminator, like like Terminator and Marvel, as we were saying, like there's so many characters and so much branching timelines to keep up with. Like Marvel specifically, it comes from the comics where there's already multiverses, so it kind of just naturally affiliates with such a huge roster of characters. Like, and I was gonna say too, like DC simultaneously also has a bunch of characters that naturally makes sense to just have multiverse travel, because you can kind of bounce in between that. It doesn't really, like, you can have all of that collide at once or just keep up with several stories. It's still interesting to see it's really interesting to see just like how writers kind of handle like different, like differing timelines and dimensions.
Well, I think part of what makes it work really well in like comics with like Marvel and DC is like there's so many different people working on it that like I feel like it just kind of falls into place naturally, because obviously if you have two different people writing about the same character, they're going to have like different ideas about it. And like there are ways for like writers to have like one continuation even if it's multiple people writing the same story. But because there's just so much going on there, I think that it really lends itself to that like really well.
Mm. And to add on to that, just with comics itself, or like in particular with superhero comics, it's already kind of, when you have such like interesting ability or like interesting powers and abilities for your superheroes, naturally you could play around with time travel and it would make sense. Like the Flash going so fast that he reverses time, that makes sense. That works. You don't really question it.
The Flash.
Sure.
On the note of the Flash. What, sorry?
I'm saying sure.
On a note of the Flash is about the only time travel that makes kind of a modicum of sense, and we're actually going to use Einstein's theory of relativity for this, because objects, as they approach the speed of light, time acts differently for them. And this is all about the mass to acceleration equation as well. You want to travel through time faster or slower than everyone else, you have to change your speed. A clock that is up on the top of a mountain or in a plane for a large period of time will actually move slower based on its speed than a clock will at sea level or below. And as much as I sound like a crazy pseudoscientist, we have actually proven this theory by using specialized atomic clocks. And it's a very interesting premise. But the Flash using speed to travel, even though, again, a human can't possibly travel that fast. Speed is probably the way that time travel will work if we ever manage it. The idea that someone going super fast, their time slows down relative to the people who are not moving at that speed. And there's my nerd rant about it for right now. But
that's interesting, because like when I was going through the list on Wikipedia of like stories with time travel in them, a lot of the ones that came up were like time dilation, where like, you know, someone goes to space and then comes back and time has passed so much that things are different.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like Planet of the Apes and stuff like that.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That is, we have proved that actually works. If you can go fast enough, that is what happens. Time dilation.
And I just want to point on this before we move past the multiverse time travel idea with the Flash. DC used that to their advantage. They ended a bunch of runs of different comic book characters and started the New 52 by using Flashpoint, which allowed them to change the backstories of a bunch of their characters. And I might not like how they changed it all, but it was really well done. A way that they could, like, they were like, okay, we're done with these character stories, but the fans still like these characters, so how can we start over again? We already said the Flash can change time, so let's do that again.
It works in universe and follows its own rules.
Yeah.
Which is the best thing time travel can do, is follow its own rules.
Yep. Yeah. We mentioned before the time loops. And I didn't include that in like the 3 main types of time travel because I feel like time loops are kind of on an outside aspect of it. And for those of you who don't know, if there is anybody, when I say time loops, I mean situations like Groundhog's Day and Happy Death Day, where you have one character that keeps reliving a set period of time, be it a day, be it a week, what have you. Technically, it's time travel because they keep going back to the past, but they're stuck in that one loop. What do you guys think of that?
I love time loops. I think they're so fun when they're done well.
I do too.
I adore them. It's one of my favorite tropes.
So, here's the interesting thing. I want to add to your definition about time loops being time travel, because I completely agree that they are time travel. And they kind of play off the idea that being able to see the future is time travel, because, and I know you told me this, I'm not sure if you said it in episode yet, the idea that the information from the future has to travel to the past is itself informational time travel, and so counts. And the idea of a time loop means that a character has experienced the future. And when we get into a show where, let's say Happy Death Day, where she has to solve her own murder, per se, and figure out who's killing her. Spoilers ahead, by the way, apparently. So she has to figure out her own killer, but she can't do it in one run. She needs information from multiple loops. And therefore it is time travel, because without the time loop, she would never get that information. Right? And my favorite example of this, to mention another, is a crime procedural called Daybreak, about a cop who goes back in time on a Groundhog Day style, and to break the loop, he has to blow basically a crime syndicate wide open. And it was a very good one, as much as I don't like crime procedurals at all, or cops for that matter. As much as I don't like either of those things, I found it very interesting to use it as almost like a murder mystery, and see this guy using something from the last 6 time loops to solve an issue he's having with a different character that never would have been solved without his information from the time loops. It was a very well done show, including the part where he says, fuck it, and takes his girlfriend out on her dream vacation, like 200 loops in a row, just to see her happy, because he's like, fuck doing this murder mystery shit. I'm bored and I want to be happy with my girlfriend. And it was a fantastic arc. It was like really well done. Because who wouldn't do that? You're stuck in a time loop. You've tested everything you can. You get bored for a bit. Just go on vacation for a while. What's stopping you? You're going to relive it anyways.
I feel like something like that happens in almost every time loop, where they just say, fuck what I'm supposed to do. I'm just going to do whatever I want, because it doesn't matter.
I love the bit in Groundhog Day when he's just reached a point where he's just so ambivalent to everything. He just randomly decides to rob an armored car.
Using it, you could literally dodge fucking bullets if you went through enough loops. And it'd be fantastically funny. And wouldn't that just be a power trip and a half?
I also have these weird memories. I feel like every early mid 2000s Disney Channel show had a time loop episode.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
These shows have time loop episodes. Buffy the Vampire Slayer had one. Supernatural has one. Tuesday.
I love that episode.
That was
it's
a fun one, yeah.
One of the few episodes of Supernatural that I look back on fondly.
Yeah.
If we're sharing time loop stories, PT is a really good example of time loop being used really effectively, because it's for those who aren't familiar with PT, it is supposed to be a lead up, or it was supposed to set up a Silent Hill game, by Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro, right?
Yeah. It was Kojima, Guillermo del Toro, Junji Ito's working on the art and character design.
Yeah. So it was supposed to be this massive horror project, and for the playable teaser PT, it was just this one character exploring this house, and I'll try to keep the horror aspect of it short because and the entire time it just kind of gets progressively worse and worse for just being a loop, and that kind of exploration into making time loops more interesting is so fucking cool. Like you can, it's a series of like in regards to PT, like playing the exact same loop over and over again, while adding in just tiny little bits with each loop, just progressively makes the experience in PT and in I think in loops in general that much more interesting, because psychologically time loops have to be fucking with you. Like there's no way that it can't. And to play on, like, to really engage with the horror aspect of PT, like, it's insane. It's so good. It's so well done.
A question, because I never thought of PT as a time loop personally. I thought he was stuck in like a little microcausal dimension that repeated, but thinking of it as a time loop is actually really fucky. And I like that interpretation of it. It wasn't my initial thought though, and that's a very interesting interpretation. I like that.
Yes, you know, that's
I always thought of it as because it's called, because like it's the playable teaser for Silent Hills plural. So I always thought of it as like each time you get through the loop, you're in like a different Silent Hill, and that was supposed to, I thought my interpretation of PT was that it was like setting up this idea that was going to be in the main game, where there would be like multiple Silent Hill sort of dimensions stacked on top of each other, and the game would like revolve around doing stuff.
Plays into our multiverse. So yeah,
time loop / multiverse.
Yeah, makes sense. But yeah,
I have a time loop example.
Well, we want to start into examples.
Oh no! You go ahead.
I mean, we can talk a bit more about time loops. I don't think, Brooke, do you have anything to say about time loops?
Well, I think everyone touched on like the ones that I had, because I only know Happy Death Day, Groundhog's Day, and Edge of Tomorrow. And I don't like Groundhog's Day, but yeah, it still follows the same formula as Edge of Tomorrow and Happy Death Day. I think they have like their own charms. Like Edge of Tomorrow was literally just video game-esque, where it's just advance the plot, get to end goal thing. Groundhog's Day, it's kind of like character development, and Happy Death Day is kind of like murder mystery.
Question, because I don't know if this is my memory playing tricks on me, and someone else might know. Edge of Tomorrow is based off a manga, isn't it?
It is.
Which is called
All You Need Is Kill.
All You Need Is Kill. Right. That is the name that was in my brain. Good. Has anyone ever actually read that one? Is it true enough to form in Edge of Tomorrow? I've never actually looked it up.
Cover to cover, multiple times. The movie is completely different.
Interesting. Okay.
It's interesting. The movie, the manga has, and well, it's originally a light novel that got turned into a whatever. That's not important. But the original, the All You Need Is Kill, has a way darker ending than the movie version. So the movie took like some of the basic ideas of it. It was like, okay, so here's this guy, he's stuck in a time loop. There's an alien called Mimics. There's a girl called Rita Fertasky. She knows what's going on. Stuff happens. They got to kill the Mimics. The manga takes, so it's much darker. It's much gorier, and has like a lot more to do with like consequences, I think, which is something that the movie was missing in its time, if it like as a time travel story. Like at the very end, he Tom Cruise like resolves everything, and everything is sort of okay. And in the manga, there's a lot heavier emphasis on like consequences for like using the time loop power the way they have.
Interesting. I do say that is one thing that I really liked about Edge of Tomorrow. As much as it's a big action flick, the fact that the female deuteragonist has already done this in the past and teaches the main character about it is something I've never seen done in a time loop story, and it made it really fantastic. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. I gotta speak on this quickly because I just had this realization. I accidentally themed myself for this episode because in Bunny Girl Senpai, there is literally time looping, and I fucking forgot about it. I don't like it, but it's in there.
Yeah, after having this discussion, I'm remembering like a bunch of other things. Like I was just like, oh wait, there was time travel in Madoka Magica too.
Oh, there was. That was one of the ones that I was considering talking about. That's just a really big time loop.
Yeah.
Cool. Anybody have anything else they want to say on time loops before we move on to? I want to talk a bit about seeing the future or like prophecies and such.
Yeah, I have one example that I have to bring up.
It
will
touch
kill
on
me if
mine
I don't
after.
bring it up.
Okay, Gabe, then Dean.
Yes.
It is a video game that I have never spoken about on the podcast before. It is called Outer Wilds.
All right. So for everyone else, just go rewatch all the episodes of the podcast. There's Gabe's arguments.
Yeah, it's if you ever want to find out, like, and I can speak for a fact, if you ever want to listen to all the segments that Gabe talks about Outer Wilds, you have to watch episodes 1 to this one.
All right, Gabe,
pretty much.
Continue.
I'll keep it super short because I have rambled on about this game a bajillion times, but essentially Outer Wilds is a game where you are an astronaut. The sun goes and you are in a 20-minute time loop from the second you take off to the sun going, and you gotta figure stuff out. It's a very, very cool usage of time loop in a video game, because no information is like given to you straight off, and the game is all about like actively finding shit out, and like say, and like it really plays into the idea of time, which is why like I think it's like very much a time travel game, in more than just the fact that it has like a time travel thing happening. Like there's this idea of like memorizing aspects of the loop, and using time, and like playing around with time. Like there'll be planets, like there'll be planets where like things happen at certain points on the 20-minute loop, and you have to sort of get this routine like in your head. It's a very cool game. It really plays with the time travel element in a really unique way. I've recommended it on every single episode of the podcast since I played it, and I will continue to do so. That's all I got to say on Outer Wilds.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Tune in to, well, if we're talking about upload order, tune into next week's episode on sex, love, and romance writing, where Gabe will somehow find a way to incorporate that.
I'll find a way
too.
I always do. I always come back.
Okay, and Dean, you had something else you wanted to say.
Yeah, it's really quick. I like the idea, or I like them, like, I like it when stories imply that there could be a loop. Like, this could be a repeated series of events that the protagonist just can't outlive. And I speak in particular of Gabe's story that we did for the workshop episode, not a selfless or not a plug at all, where his story of where, for those who haven't seen it manifest, it's the protagonist essentially has a pretty bad airplane ride, and I'm butchering the explanation, but just like by the end of it, when he sees the same person, when he sees himself like living through the events of what we had earlier in the story, it's so interesting to me, because that it's like, it feels as if like this story could go on forever, and it'd be stuck in a like thing. And obviously, like, that's speaking ill of the protagonist, because no one should have to live through a time loop, because I think time loops are ultimately scary as fuck. But it's also really interesting to read, because you don't know just how much their mental state and their thing and their psyche kind of deteriorates over time. Because if you're just reliving the same thing over and over and over again, like I said earlier, that has to fuck with you. And on another side note too, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the back rooms, but level, like, it's a series of like I don't know, I can't explain the back rooms, but it's just it's a series of levels of differing rooms, some more horrible than the others. And the first one that you can kind of like clip into is this one corridor, or it's this one like series of rooms of the same wallpaper, the same like slightly damp floor, like really irritating neon lights and stuff. And over time, like the whole your point is to escape that, and the thought that you may never escape and you're just going to be looking at the same walls over and over forever is horrifying, and that's cool as hell.
Literally, I was gonna say, everyone knows I'm not a huge horror fan. I fucking love like loop horror stories. I think they're so interesting.
Mm-hmm. I would be terrified to be stuck in a loop.
Oh, I would too.
And it doesn't even have to be like a horror loop. It could be like a loop where I'm just stuck doing my day, going to work, going home, going to bed, like that, or just doing the exact same thing over and over again. It would drive me crazy.
Yeah.
So, this is a strange topic of conversation. I know we were supposed to be getting on to examples, but...
Brooke, did you want to add something now?
Yeah, I can't believe I fucking forgot about this earlier since Undertale was such a big part of my preteen life. But Undertale is very fascinating time loop for me because it's written into the game's code. Like, you are looping as any game does, where you're allowed to restart checkpoints and whatnot. But Sans is breaking the fourth wall in the game, and he knows that you're playing a game, and he constantly calls you out for it. When you die, sometimes you'll be called out for it. And once you've done pacifist route and gone into genocide, he will call you out specifically saying that you were our friends once, why are you killing us now? And if you go back to pacifist after you've done a genocide, Sans will constantly berate you because he knows that you killed everyone. And it's freaky as fuck to just like be playing a game thinking it's a regular game, but it's actually a loop where this character is aware that he's looping all the time because you're playing the game with him.
Weird.
Oh, God, that's
one of the I remember the first time I played Undertale. I can't remember Mom Cow's name. What the fuck is her name?
Toriel?
Toriel?
Toriel, like tutorial.
Yes, that's right. She's like, I killed her.
You?
Wow.
The first time I was playing through it, I killed her, and then I reloaded a save, and then I didn't kill her, and this was the first time that I encountered when Undertale got Bucky, because I then found out that if you kill Toriel, go back, don't kill Toriel, then Flowey, who is for those who haven't played Undertale, he's a recurring boy of mischievous deeds, and he pops up and he's like, I know what you did, and then he dips.
Yeah.
It's fucking freaky.
I was gonna say, doesn't Flowey call you out on it constantly too?
Yeah, just those two. Just Flowey and Sans know that you're in the loop.
I think another good one with Flowey is like, if you do, I believe if you do a genocide route, don't finish it. Do a pacifist route. Flowey pops up and he's like, "Dude, what the fuck? We were so close."
Oh,
yep. Interesting.
Freaky man.
Tyler had something he wanted to say as well.
So first, like, great that you brought up Undertale. I recently spent some time watching like the whole game theory series on Undertale. Fantastic game. So while we're talking about time loops, which are in themselves a kind of version of cyclical time travel, if you want to semantify it, which I always do. How about a real world example, everybody? I have experienced time loops myself, but more to the point, everyone kind of has with deja vu.
Okay. I have something to share afterwards because that's no.
So, I think this is why time travel is such a fascinating subject to a lot of people, and eventually I do want to move on to our big examples, but I digress. I realize I have real life experience with this shit. So my brain is not always the healthiest. And besides regular deja vu, I have experienced really hardcore precognitive deja vu, which I know other people in the world have. And if you have, and you're listening to this, please talk to me about it, because no one I actually talked to has experienced this. I just know other people on the internet have done it once in a while, where I will sometimes experience something and get such a hardcore wash of déjà vu. And I've explained this to Marie-Soleil before, so I'll try to keep it succinct and not absolutely crazy. But it's basically that I will suddenly live through something and remember that I have lived through this before, as if I have dreamed that this thing has happened. But since it was a dream, I'd forgotten about it until I'd relived it. And it's terrifying.
I've experienced that, I will say that.
I live in near constant fear of this happening, because throughout my young life, I remember the earliest time this happening, I must have been like 11 or 12, and it still happens to this day, 15 years later. It's a bit rarer now, which I am overtly thankful for, but it would basically fuck me up for the entire day when it happened. And all the addling I've done to my brain aside, being stuck in a time loop, not fun.
I've definitely experienced that, where I've like done something and then been like, I've seen this before. Did I have a dream about this? It's really unsettling.
It's unsettling as hell. And Marie-Soleil also knows that I live in constant fear of one of these precognitive memories coming true. But I remember it being a precognitive memory, so it's probably not going to.
So before we move on to examples, I'm going to share the time where I was stuck in a sleep paralysis loop.
Boy.
It was, so I think I may have shared this story off podcast before, but for everyone who's listening right now, I've experienced sleep paralysis a total of 3 times. The time where I felt like I was stuck in a loop, I was I think that was the 3rd time and the most recent. And if anyone is sensitive to like details like that, turn away right now. I'll provide a timestamp to when you can skip. But I remember sleeping on my stomach after taking a nap. I was pretty tired that day. I don't think I got much sleep, and I woke up. My door was open. My pillows were facing, so I was facing against the door, so I could see a bit of outside. And I remember being on my stomach, and I didn't move. And I couldn't move because I eventually realized I couldn't move because when I first woke up, I was so exhausted. I didn't even realize that thing. I didn't even realize that, like, you know, I was drifting back to sleep. But I remember seeing the door open. And so I realized, you know what, I'm probably still just tired. I'm just going to go back to sleep. Woke up in the exact same position. Was still likely too tired. I convinced myself I was still too tired, so I just went back to bed. The 3rd time, that was when I realized I couldn't move. I couldn't move my arms. I couldn't move my head. I couldn't move my body. I was stuck. And this scared the ever-loving fuck out of me, because the last 2 times that I had experienced sleep paralysis, I was on my back. And since then, I had not slept on my back and would usually sleep on my stomach, which I do anyway. But by the 3rd time that I realized, like, I'm just not moving, and I'm just continuously waking up in this state of seeing the exact same open door, not moving my hands at all, I closed my eyes, tried to nap the whole thing off, and tried to wake up just at some point, and I woke up, but I was still stuck in the loop. And that's when the fear sinks in. And for those who have experienced sleep paralysis, it is an intense, overbearing fear that encompasses you, because when you're stuck like that, it is terrifying. So by that time, I eventually tried screaming, and I couldn't even do that. So eventually tried sleeping again, and by the 5th time, I was still stuck in the loop. So I think I was extremely, extremely scared by that point. And I didn't even realize afterwards that I had just fallen asleep. And when I woke up for real that time, I remember going upstairs, getting a glass of water, and just not wanting to sleep that night. Because that was awful.
In summary, time loops, horrifying, actually terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does anybody have any more comments on time loop? I'll take your silence as a no. Before we move on to examples, I wanted to talk about two things. I think one is precognition, which you guys kind of mentioned, Tyler mentioned with deja vu. The idea of like your characters, main character can have visions from the future, and tend to be two types of this: visions of the future that you can change, and visions that you cannot change. Such as like in the original Charmed One series, Phoebe has the power of precognition, and she has premonitions of future events, typically about innocents that they would have to save. Her visions always happen, but they can change the events of said visions. Do you guys agree that that would be a type of time travel, information traveling into the past?
I don't see why not, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So,
For sure.
Encanto. We don't talk about him, but like, if your consciousness is traveling forward in time, is the inverse of technically the information traveling backwards in time. And once again, we can divide it into pseudo-cyclical and pseudo-linear, in that events can be changed and time is therefore fluid, or events can't be changed and we're a self-fulfilling prophecy. One of the actual best precognitions I've ever seen done is actually Dune. It's one of the good parts of Dune is Paul Atreides' precognition due to doing too much space cocaine. Which I will say does not give you precognition. IRL.
You've never done space cocaine.
Anyways, new task for any of my degenerate friends. Find me space cocaine. So
good luck with that, guys.
That's one hell of a request.
Paul's specific brand of future sight sees him losing himself in the timeline a few times. When he either meditates or sees events, it's as if he's experiencing them all at the same time. Now, Paul specifically states that time is not fixed, and part of why he's a little bit crazy is because he's experiencing all of the different ones at once that may come to pass or may not. And Paul, I feel like, is specifically time traveling because there are times when he straight up skips ahead and doesn't realize it. He's suddenly at an event that he's seen and he has information about what happens at this event, but he's not sure if it's because he's lived it or he's seen it. He's not sure if he's looking at it from a future sight perspective or if this is the actual moment that everyone else is in. And like I said, that's one of the best parts of the Dune books because future sight, especially on a branching timeline rule set, again, kind of fucking terrifying. But yeah, future sight, definitely time travel in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm gonna I really like the way the Charmed Ones did future sight with Phoebe, and the fact that they could change some of her visions. They could save some of the people that she saw die. However, they couldn't change all of them. There was one episode where she had a vision of herself being burned at the stake for witchcraft in the future. They travel to the future to save her, and they realized that in order to save her, they would be destroying the future. So they have to let her be burned at the stake.
Jesus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If you're going to watch the Charmed Ones, watch the original series, not the remake that they've recently come out with, because like the original is so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about future sight and seeing into the future, That's So Raven. It's always pretty fun.
Raven,
Yeah, it's because with That's So Raven, a lot of the episodes is it's very like good like characterization for Raven and for everyone around her, because like seeing a possibility and seeing something that is definitely going to happen or maybe not is always just adds a lot more intrigue and tension, because how is Raven going to not let this bad thing happen, or how is it that this good thing will happen? Like it's the one kind of thing where like knowledge into the future actually really plays into the show's charm and intrigue, especially with its characters, because everyone becomes affected by this, not just Raven herself, because like as a result Raven then talks to Chelsea, and then she talks to then she talks to her, then she just talks to pretty much everybody and influences the plot from there. And that's really good. Like that's a really good way of like future seeing, because it just means that Raven really drives the initiative to either let the good thing happen or stop the bad thing from happening. And that's good. That's a really good addition to Raven's character.
I feel like being able to
Alex?
I was just gonna say, I feel like being able to like see the future like that and be aware of it would be so stressful.
Yeah.
Like if something bad happens and you knew about it, like I just feel like the guilt that you would feel for that would be so bad, even if there was nothing you could do to change it.
Yeah.
Just look at Bruno.
Yeah.
Who? Sorry? He who will not be named?
And even with he who shouldn't be named, while most of his visions did come true, the last vision he had about Maribel wasn't set in stone, so to speak, where you looked at it one way and it had the house falling apart. You looked at it the other way and she's just standing in front of the house and it's fine.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool. Like it showed that maybe all of his visions had two possible outcomes, or maybe the future isn't set in glass, so to speak.
Haha.
Also, if you kind of think about it, then didn't both of them sort of come true? Like I mean, spoilers for Encanto, because like the house did fall apart, but they rebuilt it.
Yeah, that is true.
The way I read into it is it was possibilities or solid future. Like with the fish being dead, the fish would die eventually. But I think like, I mean, like, this is like the community members and stuff. When the community members come forward to complain about the predictions, I saw it as like, this is your opportunity to change something, to change the fate. Because maybe the fish was in too small of a bowl, you needed a bigger bowl, or give it some food, and then it wouldn't have fucking died. But it would die eventually. And you could prolong your gut getting big, but eventually you would just have a big gut, or eventually your hair would fall out.
Yep.
But with Mirabel's especially, it was like, it was possible that she would have just made the candle glow brighter and help everyone with their powers rather than break down the house. But because of other people's actions and her response to it, it broke down the house. Yeah. I think like a lot of tell the future things just never give anything concrete. It's just like, here's the possibility and you do what you want with that information.
Well, it's kind of like it kind of ties into like fortune telling stuff too, you know, where like something is going to happen and then based on the information that you've been given, you interpret that how you want to. And I feel like a lot of times in stories like foresight and prophecy kind of work that way, where it's like could mean multiple things, but because of like certain things that happen to you, you perceive it one way.
So I'm going to talk about this a bit more on one of my examples because, spoiler warning, since we're doing future sight, I'm a narcissist and one of my examples is my own. So there's your fortune telling for that. But I kind of want to see a fortune telling future sight aspect where it actually just details the entirety of what's going to happen in specifics at the beginning of the movie or book. And you actually just read through the events happening. There's no choice. There's no vagueness about it. Terribly sorry. You have been completely foreshadowed just as a bit of a fuck you.
Even foreshadowing at
it is. That's how Shakespeare did it, right? Was like
I actually know something that pulls that maneuver. It's not a time travel thing, but I actually have seen a thing that pulls that maneuver. It's very fun.
Romeo and Juliet.
Should I bring it up? It's not time travel, so I don't. What?
Well,
I mean, go for it.
I'll be super quick. Basically, I've talked about the anime series Baccano a couple times on podcast before.
Mm-hmm.
In the very first episode of Baccano, it shows the ending of all 3 of the arcs completely out of context. And reveals major spoilers for every character without any of the context. So the whole conceit of the series is finding out how that shit happened. But it basically, you start the series and you're like, okay, this character's gonna die. This guy's gonna lose a fucking arm and be off a train, I guess. This guy is immortal, I think. And then the whole show is finding out, trying to figure out how that shit works out.
So it's kind of
very
like the
clever.
audience in future sight.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Much as foreshadowing itself is a kind of future sight or dramatic irony future sight, but yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I think with future sight though, it's like we were speaking briefly on vagueness, and I think that's maybe just what makes future sight so interesting. Nothing's set in stone, so it's either characters will act on that and think and go with what was foretold, or they try to change that as much as possible because it could be fucking awful. And that really helps play into just how writers tell their characters, because how urgent is this? How urgent is an impending apocalypse, or how urgent is how urgent is in the case of that, or even the next fashion show, what could happen is terrifying, because and I can't speak for everyone, but not knowing what the future holds is really goddamn terrifying. So and I kind of speak a lot on the horrorness aspect, the horror aspect of time travel, but really just there's so much mystery and intrigue, especially with future time travel, because the past and the past of the past, you kind of know what you want to change, or you kind of know what has happened already, but with the future you're so uncertain. And even just getting a glimpse of that, even just taking a quick peek into a potential future, one of potentially billions, it's something that either drives you insane to go for it, or it makes you so scared. And again, it's not either or, but still, there's just so much intrigue that comes with looking into the future rather than looking back into the past.
Can I jump on that for a sec though too? One of the things that I think I really like about cyclical stories and is I guess the inevitability of it.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, the example that is coming to my head is Oedipus Rex, which is a wild story to talk about. But it's pretty common in the Greek tragedies for a character to, in the case of Oedipus, he finds out what his fate is through prophecy, which is a type of future sight, and he goes out of his way to try and stop it from happening. And by doing that, he literally walks right into his fate, which that's something I've always really liked about stories. Is in one hand with future sight, there's different possibilities, but stories with this inevitability to them are just really fascinating to me. Where people, no matter how hard they try, can't change it. It sounds really horrible, but there's just something about them that's really interesting to me.
And it's so satisfying. Firstly, insert Thanos meme saying I am inevitable. To inevitability bit. Secondly, I was literally just about to speak about the Oracle of Delphi and how humans have been fascinated with the idea of telling the future for thousands of fucking years. The idea that Oedipus, fulfilled his own prophecy has been a story in humanity for longer than, well, it is recorded history. It's one of the first recorded histories to some extent. And that's wild that even to this day, we are still so obsessed and interested in this concept, how ingrained humanity is with thinking about and trying to control the future, and the lessons we've taught ourselves about either how good that is, how bad it is, or how inevitable the future really is. Very interesting. It just plays on all of our psyches so much and has for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do we have any more comments about Future Sight?
I do. I think it's interesting that Tyler, you've talked a lot of shit about Dune, but you had a good example about premonitions and foresight from Dune. I've talked a lot of shit about Attack on Titan. I won't hop on this too far because Attack on Titan is made by an imperialist psychopath, but
and we hate it here.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't go into super detail because this basically just happened in the anime. But there's kind of a crazy moment in a very recent where time travel is introduced, and a character is having a moral crisis about doing some fucked up shit, and a manifestation of the future comes to him in physical form, more or less, and looks him dead in the eye and is like, no, fuck you, you have to do this, has to happen, fuck your morals, do this fucked up thing, you have to do it, go right to hell. And it's what's crazy is that we went through the whole series knowing that this fucked up thing happened and that this guy did this thing, and then when we see it through this whole the time travel episode, that I'm just going to call it the time travel episode because it's it's weirdly the only one, but that we have this complete perspective flip on this really fucked up historical event in the series timeline. Attack on Titan bit over.
All right, that's interesting. Any more comments on Future Sight? All right.
None from my end.
Cool. I am going to mention one more thing that I meant to mention at the beginning when I was talking about the science behind time travel and everything. There is a gentleman on YouTube with a video called Unlimited Rice Pudding.
The guy's name who did it is Exerbia, and the I at the end of Exerbia is a 1 for anyone who's interested in watching it.
He goes really, really deep into the science of time travel and what you should do if you ever time traveled to the past. And he starts off by part of at the beginning of the video, he's talking about how if time travel, if you had a machine to time travel into the past, you'd end up in where you were 100 years in the past. So in the middle of space, pretty much.
Because the Earth and the universe is constantly
moving.
Yeah, I heard about that too.
It's a really interesting video, and I recommend it to people. All of his videos are actually really interesting.
Yeah, the dude's crazy. He's part nuclear physicist, part Buddhist, and his content is wild.
But it's also really well thought out. So yeah, check that out. And then I feel like now would be a time to talk about our examples of time travel we like, and then we can do time travel we don't like. How does that sound?
Sure.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So, we'll start. I'm going to just go in the order that you're showing up on my name on my Discord. We'll start with Gabe, if that works for you.
Just quick question before we start. I know you said to bring 2 examples of something I like, 1 example of something I don't. Do I go through the 2 right now, or are we going to go
So give me the example that you like, and we'll go over the example you don't like later.
Okay, sounds good. the first. Okay, so this is when I was going through like I talked a little bit about Outer Wilds. I'm not gonna talk about Outer Wilds again. I'm not gonna do it twice in one episode. Don't worry. But like I was thinking about how time travel has been implemented in video games because of that, and it reminded me of one of my absolute all-time other favorite games called Dishonored 2. And in Dishonored 2, there is a time travel level. Believe it or not, in this like. I hesitate to call it steampunk, but basically, like this, like steampunk Victorian fantasy.
It's whale oil punk. It's whale oil.
Whale oil punk. But essentially, so in one level in Dishonored 2, there is you enter this mansion, and you're trying to find some shit, some secrets and stuff, and the mansion essentially has a hole in it. And it's not like a physical hole, it's a hole in space-time. So the mansion is fucky. And you get a device that allows you to warp essentially between the present day and a point in time 10 years prior. And this is more like I guess I'm going to talk more about game design with time travel than anything else, but I think the way that it implements time travel is very interesting because there are Dishonored is a game that is very much about movement and navigation and like sort of like observational puzzles is what I'm going to call them. Like basically like looking at a room and trying to figure out how to get out of there, not through like some physics or like finding a key code, but by like just navigating like sort of a maze. It's a maze basically, and so how this implements time travel is very interesting because there will be moments where it's like, okay, there in the present day there is this giant glass window that has in this decrepit mansion. It has just over time it has fallen and collapsed over this doorway. You can travel back in time, smash the window then so that it gets like cleaned up and stuff. Go back to the present. The window's gone. The doorway is clear now. Or there's stuff like there's a guy who has been like there's a dead like there will be like dead bodies around. If you go into the mansion and if you go through the mansion, kill the bodies like in the past where they were, the bodies are gone in the present because they weren't killed in whatever like event would have happened. It's very Dishonored is all full of game design tricks, and I think the way that they implemented a time travel mechanic here is very interesting. It was very unique. It was very fun.
I completely forgot that level existed, but it is about my only favorite example of linear time travel.
Yeah, it's great. I fucking adore that shit. I don't have much more to say about it. This is sort of what I was talking about earlier when I was saying that like when dynamic time travel is done in a way that's not paradoxy and stuff, and it's very simple, like one-to-one, but there's still like you can have cause and effect with the time travel. That can be some of the most interesting stuff because that's basically what happens here. There's no time paradoxes. Like you go in the past, you make a change, and the change takes place. But like it's just done in a way that's it's very interesting, and I think it facilitates the Dishonored sort of design very well. It's just great. I just love it.
All right then, Brooke, what is your positive time travel example, or the one you like?
I first picked Arrival, but then later on I remembered Harry Potter Prisoner of Azkaban also exists. And when I first watched the Harry Potter series, I was still very much in my time travel block. Like I absolutely just hated time travel, full stop. Hated it. Mostly because I thought of it as like a contrived way to just change things that didn't go well with like audiences, or something that producers didn't like that they wanted to change, or just bring back characters that brought in money. So I didn't like time travel. But upon revisiting Prisoner of Azkaban, I realized, this is a good movie. Because it and Arrival both do with the timeline self-consistency thing, where in Harry Potter Prisoner of Azkaban, the past and the future are basically happening at the same time. They have to exist together because it's the characters that save the characters in the past. There's nothing else that can save them in that moment. They have to do it. So there's no first loop of time. It's just always consistent and has to happen for the future to happen. So I do like that. And Arrival, I ended up having almost like an existential crisis when I was thinking about this, because I was like, it's not really time travel. It's like a change in time perception, because she's not really going forward and backward through time. I guess what we've talked about with like time information being passed back being time travel, this is what this is, but it's like the whole premise is that the aliens are bringing like a new concept to humans, that they're unlocking a new science, a new understanding of the universe, that time is not linear, that we can sort of skip through time and know everything. And the movie does it so well. And like, you don't know that the memories that she's seeing aren't memories yet. She hasn't actually been through these life experiences, I guess. She hasn't been through her daughter and her daughter dying and her marriage and her divorce and all that stuff. But you don't realize that until like way at the end. So I don't know. It's a time movie, but to me, it's not really a time travel. It's just a change in time perception because they're happening instantaneously. She's just seeing present and future at the same time. We don't really get like a look at the past, but like it wasn't relevant to the story, so I don't mind it. I really love Arrival. It was one of those. I think that was the movie that like changed time travel for me. I was like, this is a good movie. Like I already kind of liked Edge of Tomorrow, but that was just like a looping thing. This was more the consistency and actual applications of perception. Yeah. And Prisoner of Azkaban is good, and I appreciate that I can now appreciate it. But that's about all I have to say.
I hard agree with Arrival. It's
fantastic.
Like with Edge of Tomorrow, it's kind of like you kind of miss the nuance of the conversation around time travel because of all the action, which it's not a bad thing, but at the same time, like with Arrival, you're really only stuck with and I don't say stuck, like I mean like you have to really kind of pay attention because there's nothing overtly kind of like distracting you. And when you do pay attention, when you realize that it's not like the memories that she has, you know, as you were describing, Brooke, like that is such a cool way of like delivering a twist like that. It's so fascinating. And I agree, it's like Arrival 2 is I think one of my favorite, like it's definitely one of my favorite stories about time. I think not just time travel specifically, but just about time and how we can see, like how we perceive memories and thinking about like our place in the world.
It does bring into the question of like fate and if we really have choice, because it implies that she'll go through with the path that's set for her, even though she knows that the man she falls in love with, she'll eventually divorce, and the child that she'll have in love will eventually die, and there's nothing she can do to change that. So I kind of hate the idea of fate and that we don't have choices. So that's a little bit against my beliefs, but I still really enjoy it, you know?
So on that note, firstly, I love Arrival, and thank you for reminding me it exists because I now want to go and watch it again. It basically does Paul's fucking future sight from Dune, but better. And yeah, the predestination versus choice debate is something that plays strongly with me, and Marie-Soleil has heard my arguments and thesis on this a few times, so I'm not going to like spout rhetoric here, but yeah, Arrival, absolutely fantastic. I definitely I'm not going to no, because my rhetoric on free choice and whatnot is religious based, so I'm not going to bring it up on podcast. I'm basically a Calvinist by accident. Look it up. No, I definitely think Arrival is a time travel movie. Definitely, 100%.
All right. Alex, take it away.
So the first thing that came to mind when I was trying to think of examples was the TV show Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, which I am a huge fan of, but I haven't watched it in ages and I don't remember it very well. So I'm just going to talk about one of my favorite Doctor Who episodes instead, because that's fine, which is the episode The Waters of Mars. So what, I guess for a little bit of context, it kind of takes place towards the end of David Tennant's run. And the Doctor at this point has had enough, basically. So in this episode, he shows up on Mars, on like a space station on Mars, where he knows there's going to be, or he realizes there's going to be a disaster of some kind. And throughout like a lot of the show, the Doctor has this like policy where he doesn't interfere unless he like if something is set in stone, he won't interfere with it. And in this episode, he decides he's had enough, and he tries to change things, and he fails. And again, this is just like one of those things where I just like that type of story where there's like this inevitability of it. Like again, it's not something I believe is like a thing. I don't believe in like fate really, but I just think they're like really interesting stories. And I always liked this episode because you see the Doctor just like snap and he loses it and he's like, no, I'm going to change things. I'm going to make a difference. And in the face of all that, the things that he tries to change look him in the face and say, no, I'm not going to let you. And so he fails to do the one thing he sets out to do, which sends him kind of spiraling into the finale of the 10th Doctor, which is just every time I think about it, like that episode freaks me out. But it's just it's very good. Yeah.
Okay. Wait, the Doctor, when he travels through time, there are fixed points that he won't touch, like the Titanic and such, right?
Yeah, there's certain things that like have to happen most of the and he just knows them. And so this episode he finds himself at a fixed point in time, something that he can't change because it has to happen. And he tries to and it doesn't work. Doctor Who has very interesting rules around time travel.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Then, Dean, what's your favorite time travel?
I'm going to talk briefly about two as kind of like an as honorable mentions before I get on to my main one. NieR Automata is one that could potentially count as a loop because essentially the characters by the end of the story are just going to be, and spoilers for NieR Automata's true ending, it's implied that the cycle of life and death or I don't know if it's like just implied, it could be like directly stated that at the end of the true ending, as everyone is being rebuilt, the cycle is just going to repeat all over again. And I find that inherently fascinating. After everything that had happened too, it's like what else could these like few characters do? What is more for them? And that's what and that's interesting, exploring like within the realm of NieR. And Gabe, if you want to expand on that after, then we can. But the other one that I want to talk about is Interstellar. I ended up choosing another story after or over Interstellar because it's been a long time since I've seen Interstellar, so I don't have the full authority to speak on it. But what I remember like clearly about it is the time dilation, specifically when they're on that one planet, when they're orbiting Gargantua, I think. were there near that one? And again, I'm probably getting events all wrong, but it's on the when they're orbiting the black hole Gargantua, and what is it? 1 minute on that planet was like how many years on Earth? I think I forget, but just seeing
7 years.
7 years, yeah, that's insane. That hurt my head a little bit the first time that I saw it, because I'm like, I was like, I had never experienced that kind of story before, and to see it like actualized, pretty well done actually. It was really cool to see. But I think if we're talking about my favorite one to talk about, it's definitely Life is Strange, because it like, as a video game, there's just more to interact with Life is Strange's mechanics and story, and it still has, like, gameplay wise, very set rules. You can't go back, you can't go back more than like a few seconds at a time, a few minutes at a time. But if you had access to some kind of like object pertaining to the past, you could go back to that time, and that's so sweet. Like it's it follows its rules. It kind of sticks by it, and is very, very interesting to see. Am I lagging?
You were for a second there, but you seem to be back to normal. I don't know if anyone else heard it. Dean became a robot.
I didn't hear it.
All right.
Okay.
I didn't hear it.
Okay. Might have been just our internet then. Keep going.
Okay. So, like I was saying, like, it's fun playing around with the time travel mechanics of Life is Strange, but at the same time, it just helps influence, or it just really helps play a part into like Max's story and like her relationship with Chloe, because when you when you give like teenagers like incredible abilities like that, they're gonna want to test it. They're gonna want to like see if it works. And the entire and a lot of like the driving arc behind Life is Strange is finding out what happened to Rachel. So I think, if I remember correctly, at one point, like, Chloe being really upset and still struck over Rachel Amber's disappearance, that she's kind of like, Max, can we do anything about this? And even then, just like the moments where Chloe is asking Max to prove that this is true, it plays really well into, like, the writers knew what they were doing when they were incorporating time travel, because it's not just one thing that the characters, or that Max does outside of everyone's knowledge. Like, with Chloe having full knowledge of what is happening and how the powers work, then it just makes it an integral part of the story, and you can't really have like the relationships in the story that Life is Strange 1 is without time travel. And it really plays into just how sweet and how earnest like the story is between Max and Chloe, because with the ability to change time, like, what else thing, like, what am I trying to say? Just, they can seemingly do like they'll seemingly be okay, but just, it's no, I lost my train of thought. It's a great story, and I ended up choosing that over Interstellar because it's not only one of my favorite games of all time, but it's just my favorite way of like sticking to kind of like a fixed perspective, or a fixed time travel story, like we were talking earlier, because it doesn't open up it doesn't open up paradoxes, I don't think. It kind of like, there's cause and effect to using time travel, and that kind of influences the ending, but it doesn't ever open up like a multiverse, or like address any kind of like big paradoxes. Or maybe it's just been a while since I've played it, but yeah, Life is Strange 1. Very good.
Nice. So I guess since Tyler is insisting on going last, it's my turn.
I always go last. It's a bit at this point.
I am going to also do a couple honorable mentions before I say my favorite one. There is, and Supernatural has its ups and downs, but there is an episode of it, and I like the way that they played it because the main characters, Sam and Dean, don't realize the past has been changed at the beginning of the episode. It's called, the episode is, they are investigating a bunch of weird deaths, and there are a bunch of weird things in the show that the characters don't realize. Like they have a Mustang instead of the Impala, and different little things that you wouldn't notice.
I forgot about this episode.
Yeah. It turns out Castiel and Balthazar, another angel. Yeah, another angel went into the past and stopped the Titanic from sinking, creating a lot of lives, a lot of people that should never have been born. And fate is trying to correct that by killing off all of these lives that shouldn't exist, all of these people that shouldn't exist.
God, there's some brutal deaths in that episode too, like the hair salon, right? That's that episode, right?
I think so, yes. And it was really interesting to me to watch because the brothers aren't the ones that time traveled. They're just dealing with the impacts of a change in the past.
I remember really liking the reveal of it too, because like I think it was like Sam pulled out a book and was flipping through it and like says something about like a ship called the Titanic, and Dean's like, "What's that?" And Sam's like, "Oh, I don't know. I've never heard of it before." And you're like, "What?"
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Yeah, it's just I agree. That's a well done reveal.
Yeah, and another one honorable mention that I want to talk about was this TV series called Timeless, where there are two groups in it. One is a nefarious group that's going back in time to try to change things for their benefit. And then you have the main characters who include a historian, a soldier, and a scientist that are going into the past to try to stop the other people from changing the future. And they end up changing the future too in certain ways. But they try to blend in to the point where like they go to the time of Lincoln's assassination, and Rufus, the scientist, is played by Malcolm Barrett, who, for those of you who don't know, is a person of color. And he is the outfit they give him is a soldier's uniform. But when he goes back and he talks and he's confronted by other soldiers at the time, he doesn't know anything about like what division of the military of the army he's supposed to be a part of. He doesn't have that information. They didn't give it to him. So the actual soldiers in the time period believe that he stole that uniform and that he's not like. So it's this interesting dynamic of trying to save the past, but also not having the information you need to save the past. And then when they get back to the present, a bunch of shit gets changed. Like at one point, when Lucy Preston, played by Abigail Spencer, she goes home and her mother is alive now. Her mother had died of cancer, but now she's alive again. And dealing with those things, and nobody else talking to the people that they work for about this, and the people that they work for had no idea, like not knowing what they're talking about, was really interesting. But I think my favorite time travel movie is Timeline from 2003 with Paul Walker and Gerald Butler and Billy Connolly.
Holy shit.
What?
Deep memory.
You've seen it?
Holy fucking shit. Yeah, go on, please.
I love this movie. And because they're a group of archaeologists at a historical dig site. And Billy Connolly, he goes, they're getting a bunch of pointers and hints from this company that shouldn't know these things. So he goes to talk to them. And then at the dig site, they uncover this one room that they hadn't been in yet. And they find his glasses and a document with his writing on it asking for help. So they basically call up that tech company that he went to go visit and are like, hey, if you don't let us talk to him, we're going to call the police and report a kidnapping. So they invite the group of archaeologists and the guy's son, played by Paul Walker, to the site where they find out that they're trying to invent teleportation. And they accidentally caught a wormhole that is now teleporting people back to 1357 France at the village of Castlegar, where there is to be a battle between the French and the English. This is the same archaeological site that they were at before, that these historians and archaeologists have been studying. So they go to the past and they see this site in person. And because they've studied what the site has become, that leads them to finding things like there is a mural that they find that was destroyed and everything. And when they go into the past, the mural isn't destroyed, and they realize the reason why they were the ones to destroy it, because there's a secret passage behind it.
Ooh.
The one thing, and Gerald Butler's character ends up falling in love with a woman in the past, Lady Claire. Lady Claire was supposed to die in this battle, but he ends up saving her. And he freaks out because he saved her. He's changed the past. And then in a different battle, so at the beginning of the movie, he found this tomb that had the carving on it was of a man who had his ear chopped off. And then in the battle, his ear is chopped off. He literally found his own tomb.
That's so unsettling.
It is when you but I just I don't know how to explain it better, but I liked how they tied it all together and yeah, I don't know how to explain it better than that. I'm sorry, this probably doesn't make much sense. I'm kind of rambling at this point. Any questions?
Is it cyclical or linear? Because they find the tomb before he saves her from the battle.
And that's the thing. It's unclear because originally when they're talking about the battle, Lady Claire was hung from the battlements at this castle, which is what incited the French to defeat the English. Her death drove the French army through fury to defeat the English. But she lives. They saved her life, but the French still win against the English.
But his tomb's there in the present with the missing ear, which he only would have lost if he tried to save
Exactly.
her.
So it's then it leaves you to wonder, did they fake her death in a way? Is the official story the one that they were teaching at the beginning of the movie that she died? Do they still teach that after they come back from the past, even though she lived? Do people think she actually died? Because they did a lot of things in the past that would have changed events. They had Greek fire. They blew up the castle and it makes it seem like they did this from the beginning, that they were in the past and did all of these things. So the story that they are teaching is actually falsified. And when you think, it's really confusing when you think about it. But also it makes you think. Anyway, it's not very straightforward time travel. I like the science of it because they don't let any of them take any present day items to the past. They even say, like, that's the mistake they made with his father. They let him bring his glasses into the past. Glasses didn't exist then, and they take the glasses away from one of their group's members. But another member of this group sneaks a grenade into the past. Yeah.
Okay.
So glasses are a no. You're not allowed to see in the past, but you can bring in weapons of war that let you blow stuff up. That's fine.
Yeah.
Well, the holy hand grenade, they had that technology.
And there's this whole thing where the machine that transports them into the past is damaged, and the people in the present have to fix this before the time limit that the travelers have is up.
I go into the past and I cast Fireball, throws grenade.
They actually, like, their story is that they are alchemists from Ireland because, well, Billy Connolly is Irish. Scottish? Irish. So that is the story that these guys have. They are his students. He is an alchemist, I believe. And yeah, promises the English Greek fire.
Oh boy.
Yeah. It is a really interesting movie, and you should watch it. But now it's Tyler's turn. Wait.
Sorry. Nope. Sorry.
No, you're gonna say something. Say it.
Oh no, I was just gonna talk about how it's crazy. You remember that movie?
I am not going to lie. I had a crush on Paul Walker in this movie. I mean, not the actor, but the character.
Okay.
So it's a core horny memory, and that's why you remember it.
Not a horny memory. I was too young when I first watched this. It came out in 2003. I just like the fact that he has a crush on the only main female character that is not from the past. And he ends up becoming an archaeologist because that's what she is.
Oh
but anyway.
Classic.
Tyler.
That's my name.
What's your favorite or the best time travel example you can think of?
My own. All right, everybody ready? Honorable mentions is a movie called Midnight in Paris. A guy travels back in time to speak to famous writers of the past who are his idols. Time travel is a mechanic in the movie used to drive the plot and tell interesting stories, as opposed to being itself the plot, which I really liked. I like time travel as sort of, a thing that happens and is used. Other honorable mention, Split Second, which is a comic book that Lee showed me. It's a Deadpool and Cable comic. You have to read it forward first and then read it backwards. And it focuses on a quick time loop that Deadpool goes through. And it's fantastically done. Very interesting. But the actual thing I want to talk about is a story I developed a long while back now, because I'm partially hoping to workshop it, partially hoping to see what people think, because I designed it as a pseudo solution to the difference between linear and cyclical time travel. And it's kind of a mix of the two, and I wanted to get people's ideas on, would this work? Is there some large glaring plot hole I'm overlooking? That sort of dealios. So this might take a minute. Premise is a superhero style story. Follows a guy with time powers. He can slow it down, he can speed it up a bit, and he can stop it. However, his body usually stays at the same pace no matter what happens. And what that means is if he stops time, his body's trying to stop and his heart is trying to stop. So every time he stops time, he risks fucking dying, which is the way I pseudo-limited the power in story. None of this particularly matters. It's just the setup. He goes through his life until, I don't know, 18, does the whole rescue the girl from the evil secret organization thing, yada, yada, yada. And the adventure is basically over. He has solved the big problem that was going on in his life, and the rest of his life should be okay. He's just going to have powers now. He's sitting in his room one night, happy with the solution he's found, when suddenly someone pops into his room, standing at the foot of his bed. It's him. And he's like 80. And he goes, all right, so my time is over. It's your turn to go through our life. Here's all of our recorded history that we've got. And he basically hands him an external terabyte hard drive, which has every piece of information that every loop for the past several thousand loops of his own life has been through. He basically knows the entire future of the world now. There are lottery numbers, there are world events. Several of his previous selves in the loop have spoken to scientists on the matter. There's a couple loops where he's revealed himself to have this power to the world, and they've explained how you can do that without having the CIA after you, or how to do it and like thwart this evil thing that happens in the future. Here's a talk about how this one supervillain you fought 2 years ago reappears in 20 years, and here's how you can cut that off at the head before it even happens. Here's a life where you live with the girl that you've just saved and have a bunch of kids, and here's how to prevent this accident that happens to them at a future point. Here's a different life where you decide to instead go around dating supermodels, and here's how to do all this stuff. And it's a huge, vast wealth of information that is collected of all his past selves. And there's a few references in there theorizing from several of his past selves that this isn't the first time they've done this. They have no idea how many loops they've been through, more than likely infinite. And there's talks of this archive isn't the first either. There have been past selves who have destroyed their own archive, and the loop has restarted again in a different form or fashion. And so it's kind of extremely existential. And after he gets handed this hard drive, his future self pops and vanishes. And the first pre-word he reads, the first like big readme text file on this thing, basically explains to him that their final superpower that they get is past travel, but they can't control it. It almost always happens when they turn a certain age, or usually just before they reach their deathbed, barring a few things. And again, given this many loops and this many times through the story, a few of their more educated selves or more driven selves have figured out the rules behind it to almost a T. There's formulas in there for curing cancer, for curing diseases, and basically it's a manual of what life do you want to lead? You're the next one in the loop. That's my concept. The story I was going to tell in the sort of epilogue, he sets the terabyte up, reads the README file, starts looking through, and then turns the whole thing off. He goes, lives his life with the girl, has a couple kids, knows that this is coming, but enjoys it all anyways. He does not look at the future. He does not look at this information. His deathbed, he pops back in time, pulls out a gun and shoots his 18-year-old self in the head in the bed, thereby ending the loop. Ta-da!
Wow.
I think we all need a minute to process that.
Yeah. Oh my god.
It kind of reminds me of The Green Knight. I don't know if you've seen her. I haven't. I don't know if that's in. Oh, you should watch The Green Knight because I think you'd love it.
Thoughts, comments, concerns on my mental health as usual.
I mean, the usual, yeah.
It's
cool though.
Yeah, I want to read it.
If I ever fucking write it.
Write it, damn it.
Yeah.
Tyler has a lot of ideas, but he doesn't really write them down.
I write them all down just in point form notation. Never narrative.
Me, sometimes.
What is a writer if not someone who doesn't write?
True.
What is a writer if not stacks of
Nope.
unused notebooks persevering?
Anyways, so speaking on the time travel narrative, obviously I worked with Cyclical, but also with NieR in the fact that he is the only thing that loops, and his time is therefore malleable, right? He will always go into the past, but no one else's time loops. There's also theories that he is the only thing in the timeline. They're not sure if the timeline continues after he loops back or if it just vanishes, because they obviously can't see it. No one knows where they go after they pop into the bedroom, talk to their past self, and vanish again. No one knows, because, again, you can't travel back forward again. There's also theories that after they do their time loop and thereby change the past by speaking to their past self, every time they do that, they create a parallel dimension, because everything up until the point where they meet themselves is always exactly the same, meaning that they themselves are the changing variable. My only thought is, given the rules I've stated, when he goes back in time and shoots himself in the head, wouldn't that mean that the 16-year-old, 18, whatever I said, wouldn't that mean that the version of himself that's the past instantly shoot back in time as well, because it always happens on near death? Or would I change that rule to make it so that they actually can die and that will ruin that part of the loop? Or will that mean there's a different past version of himself coming up to that point and he'll get a dead body appearing in his room in front of him at 18? That's the plot hole I've thought of, but I wanted everyone else's opinions on it.
That was my question too, actually. But also, because like I feel like you say that they travel back in time right before they die. So what if he like goes back and the dude he wants to shoot isn't there because he's about to die, so then he travels back as well?
Fair. Yeah. Just play leapfrog with yourself through time? God, that would suck.
I just had an idea that if you actually wrote this, somebody would totally write fan fiction about one of this guy's kids who also has this ability.
That wasn't going where I thought it was gonna go. And I'm glad for that.
What?
Of course, you had to go with fan fiction of my own work.
I mean, I plan on writing fan fiction of my own work.
Listen, you said fan fiction, and I was like, there's multiple versions, and my brain went straight to one slur, but like, we don't have to talk about that.
No.
That would also exist, I'm just saying.
Why did you have to speak that into existence, Alex?
Am I the only one who's not familiar with that? What is that?
We don't have to talk about it.
We'll talk about it after. We don't need to talk about that during the podcast. We can talk about it after.
Oh my god, like that one 18-year-old whose head got shot out of my head.
So, to fix the rule of that plot hole, I have debated playing with the idea that it's not on death. It's specifically when they turn 80 or something like that, because that would then allow for the loop closure that I'm thinking of. However, time travel is never without its flaws.
Mm-hmm.
True.
But
it could also be like when he dies of natural causes, before he dies of natural causes.
Yeah.
Bullet to the head is not a natural cause.
It's true. But then would that close the loop? Or would, again, some new version of himself be technically transferring itself through the timeline to get to that point, and then just no one would show up and the loop would start over again with them? The point is to leave it kind of open.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that works, though. I think it's a very cool idea.
Seconded.
Thirded.
So now that we've shared examples of time travel that we like, shall we talk about time travel we don't? Gabe? I give you the floor.
I had a long time while we were talking about things we did like to think of the ones I didn't like. before I get started, I see we're doing honorable mentions now. After Dean started, I didn't do any. I just want to very quick shout out Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the greatest movie ever made, as good time travel. Before I get into bad ones, because I didn't talk about that one. But bad time travel. So at the very beginning of the podcast, we talked about a little known time travel franchise called Terminator. And like, I feel like in the first Terminator movie, they did, as you said, they did a really good job establishing the cyclical nature of the time travel mechanics in the Terminator universe. And then in the second movie, they sort of did a good job of reinforcing that with this idea that on top of Kyle Reese having to go back in time to create himself, Skynet, by sending the original Terminator back, also creates themselves. So there's this very cycle nature, a very static time travel being reinforced in the first two movies. And then they made more, and it fucked everything up. I feel like the biggest problem I have with all of the Terminator sequels is pretty much just that none of them have ever even attempted to adhere to the rules of its own franchise, like even a little bit. And every time a new one comes out, it's even more fucky. I think the absolute, I think that the peak of this was when Genesis came out, and they just said fuck it, let's just fuck everything up, let's just make it a big soup of nonsense. We won't pay attention to canon, we won't pay attention to the shit that we've established for. I feel like James Cameron did a really good job of, like, he had an idea of how the time travel would work, and then I feel like every movie that he hasn't written has, like, not had any clue on how to, like, I don't know where I'm going with this. They're bad. They're really, really bad. They're really bad movies. They all fuck up and are stupid.
I agree.
And it's difficult because, like, I think, like, those movies are all about, like, I mean, especially Terminator 2. Terminator 2 is all about the idea that this constantly reinforced, like, oh, there's no fate but the one we make for ourselves and all that. And, like, they're all trying to stop the war from happening. Which is, like, it's fine for the plot of that movie because it's a fun action movie. But I feel like actually going forward and saying, yeah, they succeeded was like, they succeeded in Terminator 3 where they're like, yeah, they succeeded, but then it just happens later, or in Dark Fate where it's like, yeah, they succeeded, but a Terminator then later comes and just kills John Connor anyway, and also a different Skynet happens. That was actually the craziest one. I don't think Dark Fate is necessarily, like, a terrible movie. I like, as a movie, it's fine, but I think it's really fucking funny that, like, their way to solve the time travel thing of, like, at the end of Terminator 2, they stop Skynet from happening, was they're just like, oh yeah, but a different Terminator happens later on. It's I don't know. I feel like they go to very great lengths to just not adhere to the very easy rules that were established and would be much easier to follow.
Yeah, I feel like they kept trying to one-up themselves with the next movie, and that meant they couldn't follow along with the continuity of the rules they put in place with the first movie.
And, like, I feel like they've done Terminator 2 every single time ever since. I feel like this is less of a time travel thing and more of just like a Terminator rant, I guess. But I feel like every Terminator movie that has come out after Terminator 2 has been them just going like, okay, well, people really seem to like Arnold being a good guy and the bad guy being a liquid metal Terminator. So let's just do 3 more movies where there's a liquid metal Terminator and Arnold is a protector. I haven't seen the Sarah Connor Chronicles, so I can't really speak to that. I've heard it's a good TV show, but I haven't seen it.
I did not know that existed.
It looks kind of rad. It's like it's post Terminator 2. Lena Headey is Sarah Connor.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, I've never watched it.
Is that everything?
That's everything. That's all I got to say.
Awesome. Let's move on to Brooke.
Okay. Just like the way I didn't really pick one for the good, I didn't really pick one for the bad. So I'm just going to talk about both kind of briefly. I don't really like Groundhog's Day. Like, it's a good loop movie because I think it really gets the feeling across of getting stuck in an infinite loop of one day and just how hopeless it feels, especially when you don't know how to get out of it. And I would have absolutely done what he did and just tried to kill myself every fucking day. However, unlike Edge of Tomorrow, which is the end goal of destroying the thing that's causing the war, and Happy Death Day, which is causing the loop, both of those are actually destroying the thing that are causing the loop. Groundhog's Day bugs me because he's a dick going into it, and it's supposed to be like, oh, character development, and now he's not a dick when he comes out of the loop, but it was really just him getting the girl, and it doesn't sit with me because he gets to experience each day and keep the memories from each day, and he knows exactly what he's doing, and we see him like manipulate other women into like sleeping with him and doing things with him by getting them to talk with him on other days, and then they don't remember, and it's, I don't know, it's very creepy to me. So I don't like Groundhog's Day on that basis, but I don't like Endgame because Endgame is the epitome of why I don't like, why I didn't like time travel movies. Because kind of until recently, time travel movies to me were just, they weren't like deep, complex, like complicated ways to tell stories, interesting ways to show time and characters not in a linear fashion. To me, they were always just retcons, ways to bring characters back, ways to like eliminate the importance of past events, and I never liked them. And Endgame does that because it doesn't even keep with its own consistency. It goes out of its way to have in the movie say that them changing the past, like, they can't go back and kill Thanos and not fight Thanos. Like, they've already fought Thanos. It's not going to change that. They say that. So it really pissed me off that they have Steve go back, drop off all the stones, which, by the way, doesn't make sense because half of the stones came in forms that weren't stone form, so I don't know how he's going back with them all in one form. Like, how does he put them back? But also him just going back and being with Peggy, because we saw him with Peggy when she was still alive before she died saying, you need to move on. But then it goes back and implies that he stayed with Peggy. And she wouldn't have said that to him if she knew that he came back and became her husband. It breaks the rules that they set up. He shouldn't have been able to go back in time and still show up in the present as an old man. That's not what they set up, and I don't like Endgame. I knew as soon as Infinity War ended that they were going to do that, and my heart broke because it was exactly what I didn't want. I knew they were going to do it, and I didn't want it because as soon as they snapped away everyone, well, half of the people, and all of the new Avengers kept the OG 6. I was like, damn it. They're going to go back in time. They're going to get everyone back.
Thank you, Brooke.
But then they really fucking crushed it with Steve's arc. That really is the cherry on top of why I fucking hate that kind of shit. Because it ruined his entire goddamn arc. Anyway, that's all.
It was very out of character.
Because I was going to say Endgame too.
I was considering talking about Endgame, and then I wanted to talk about Terminator. So yeah.
Well, I mean, someone had to, and like, yeah, I hard agree with everything Brooke said. Fuck it, just like we all know why they did it. It's thing. It. I don't know what else they could have resorted to aside from time travel, but oh god, like the scenes were fine, and if you don't think about it too much, then it's fine. But like at the same time, like the thing that you were bringing up, like that you were talking about, Brooke, when it comes to Steve's arc, hard agree with that. But even just like, even with just the like the entire second act of Endgame, which is just going back in time, oh god, I hated it because I didn't like thing. I say that thing. I say that thing. I say that with like a lot of anger, but really just like it's just revisiting a whole bunch of like familiar moments and adding on to, well, supposedly adding on to some of the thing, like some canon into the MCU. Like that's how we got Loki as a franchise. Great, thanks Marvel, thanks for that ending, by the way. And revisiting like nostalgic moments, that I'm gonna touch on that like in a little bit, but just oh my god, that second act of Endgame was a slog. Like it's exciting, but just thinking, did they really have to go back in time? What the fuck?
I just never looked at the time travel rules in that movie are gobbledygook.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is ironic because they've had that whole spiel of like, oh, time travel rules. We have to do this. We can't do that. Don't kill baby Thanos. Then here they are fucking up their own rules as we are watching it.
It just pisses me off because it gives them the opportunity to bring back Thanos, but as a character lacking in depth from the Thanos that we just had.
Yeah. Like a much lamer version of
Yeah, like he doesn't have any connection to the characters anymore. He didn't build up these years of hunt and understanding, and he's just there. He's like, man, I don't even know who you are. It's like,
yeah.
That
I love how that seems like played for a joke where he's like, I don't even know who you are. It's like that's like you should never have a main villain say that to like a primary hero who has like the most motivation against them. You should never have a villain say, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
It's just a mess.
I fucking love how when Thor, Cap, and when Thor, Cap, and Iron Man are confronting Thanos, his motivation just shifts suddenly. He was like, I'm gonna eliminate half the universe, but then literally as he's expositing all of this, he's just like, you know what? Nah, I changed my mind. Y'all are fucking annoying. I'm just gonna kill all of you, or I'm just gonna snap all of you. I'm like, what?
he went, this universe, have you tried turning it on and off again? Reboot the system.
Just sounds like bad writing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love how like inconsistent like he is too. I feel like I always felt like it was weird that like, and like maybe like power scaling is not my strongest suit. I'm terrible with power scaling, but I always felt that it was weird that in Infinity War, Iron Man and Doctor Strange, and then like the Guardians of the Galaxy, who are just they're just guys, they're just dudes, they're just chilling, they're just people. They can take Thanos with multiple Infinity Stones, and then in Endgame, Thanos with a sword can like thoughtlessly tank Thor, Iron Man, and Cap. Like that feels weird, right?
Yeah. Like I don't think like, because it was what, 2012 to 2019. I don't think Thanos would have aged so much to where he just suddenly like becomes worse at fighting, but somehow is still somewhat really good at fight. I don't know. Just How Marvel? Why?
Maybe I'm not the one who doesn't understand power scaling. Maybe it's Marvel.
No comic books understand power scaling. Absolutely no superhero has a proper power scale or follows their own rules ever.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's why me and Lee cannot talk about comics.
So, are we done shitting on Endgame now?
In this episode, yes.
In this
In
episode,
my life, no.
Okay, we'll revisit Endgame in other episodes. I'm sure of it.
At the end of Marvel, or at the end of Marvel's Phase 4, we're gonna revisit the MCU tier list.
Oh, bold of you to assume I'm gonna keep watching. Sorry. Yeah, continue.
Alex, what was your time travel you don't like?
Speaking of bad writing, who wants to talk about Riverdale?
Oh, it's here.
What's that?
I don't know. Just I don't know if you were intending to do this, but Alex, that was a very NieR II Chill's impression.
Anyway,
who wants to talk about Riverdale?
I want to talk about Riverdale. I always want to talk about Riverdale. It's my favorite disaster.
Which I watched the first episode of, by the way, with Mari. Oh my god.
You shouldn't have. Regardless, okay. So at the moment, the time of filming, or recording, I guess we're not filming, you know what I mean. At the time of recording, there are currently 6 seasons of Riverdale, and 5 episodes have been released in season 6. For a little bit of context, season 5 ends with 2 of our main characters, Archie and Betty, hooking up in Archie's bedroom. They start hearing a beeping noise. They look under the bed. There's a bomb. It blows up. End of the episode. Season 6 starts in a town called Rivervale. Everything seems to be fine. Betty and Archie are both alive. Things seem to be continuing on from where things ended in season 5, except, without the bomb. Over the course of the next 5 episodes, we get some interesting series of events. The first episode is like a Midsummer-esque cult episode that ends with Archie being sacrificed. Then you have the second episode is about this ghost that steals people's babies. The episode ends with one of the characters taking the ghost's place, so she dies. The third episode, Lou Cypher comes to town and starts stealing people's souls.
Oh my god!
Episode 4, you learn that Cheryl is a witch, an immortal witch who has been alive for like a couple hundred years. And Sabrina from The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina shows up. And I would also like to say at this point that before season 6, there has been no actually supernatural stuff in the show. They have hinted at it in some places, but it's always explained away with like a realistic, quote unquote realistic, because it's Riverdale, explanation. So this is the only time that there's been actual like supernatural stuff in the show. I'd also like to say that these episodes are a blast to watch. They're like peak ridiculous, and I love that for them. Anyway, episode 5 is called The Jughead Paradox. All the characters throughout the show that have died are back with like no explanation at the beginning of this episode. You're just like, oh, Archie is back. He was sacrificed a little while ago. Over the course of the episode, Jughead, it starts with like Jughead dying, but then he's not dead, so he like goes to the morgue and he sees his own dead body and he's like, this is so weird, what's happening? Over the course of the episode, he kind of like unlocks the fact that they are in a parallel universe where anyone who dies comes back. And towards the end of the episode, a second Jughead appears and is basically like, so what happened was there was an explosion, the bomb under the bed from the end of season 5. Remember that? This explosion caused a fracture in the timeline. So now there's 2 different timelines. They're in one timeline where all this supernatural stuff is happening, including the fact that anyone who dies comes back to life. So in order to save the true timeline of Riverdale, Jughead basically has to set their universe on a time loop so that they relive these 5 episodes over and over and over again so that the rest of the show can continue on as planned, without killing off Betty and Archie. These 5 episodes exist to start a time loop so that, like, as a time loop in an alternate universe, so that they can undo the killing off of 2 of their main characters at the end of season 5. And I just think that's the funniest thing I've ever seen ever happen in a TV show.
Oh, my head hurts. Oh my god.
Questions?
Why? That's my question. Why?
I don't have the answer to that one.
That's usually the question that gets asked once you've had any plot point in Riverdale explained.
Riverdale sounds like a fever dream.
Dude,
it's my favorite train wreck.
Every time you say you're about to talk about Riverdale, I literally take an imaginary seatbelt and buckle up and get ready for the car crash that I'm about to hear. Like, you do amazing in explaining it, but that doesn't help me comprehend any of that silliness whatsoever.
I can't even comprehend it. I don't even know what happened in that. Like, I'm literally on the Wikipedia page of, like, Riverdale episodes, and they have, like, under each episode, they have, like, a summary of what happens. And the fucking episode 5 one is so long. Like, it's like, it takes up the whole screen by itself. Because, like, there's so much that happens in this episode, and it's so convoluted, and you're just like, they really did all of this because they wrote themselves into a corner, and they didn't know how else to get out of it.
Sounds like multiple people are having the same fever dream. And they're all, like, at different points in charge of what's happening to this fever dream.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's an example of a time travel story that I don't think was done well.
Mm-hmm. That's
Riverdale
understandable.
do anything well?
It's bad. It does being bad really well.
All right. Dean, what is your bad time travel?
I have 2. I was talking about how video games, specifically how Life is Strange really played into, or really, like, kind of made time travel fun. Not just fun in the, like, mechanic and gameplay sense, but, like, integral to a story. The 2 that I'm going to briefly talk about don't do that, and instead are just so convoluted and stupid I can't even keep up with it anymore. And so the first one I'm going to talk about is one that I don't have much verse in, because I've only ever played these games out of canon. I haven't done any of the Easter eggs, so I don't know what the fuck the story is, even after watching how many lore breakdowns. But the Call of Duty Zombies story is stupid. There is a lot of time travel from past selves, or from alternate universe selves meeting past selves, but they're not actually, like, it's more dimension. It's more like dimension travel like Tyler said earlier, rather than time travel, but it's still supposed to be like the same characters at its heart. And when you think of it like that, why are they going into the past? What are these characters from the future, like in this future apocalypse, doing? What is time in Call of Duty? I have no goddamn idea. So from what I know, there was this one like Nazi doctor and his associate, and like two Nazi doctors who created some kind of zombie virus, or like they were creating, or they found this one mysterious element that basically created zombies. And the things that I can remember from this one convoluted story is the moon being blown up, or like the earth being blown up, but then suddenly the moon gets blown up. In the post-apocalypse Earth, in the Call of Duty universe, there is a single bus of survivors in this one remote area without focusing on anything else in the story. The characters, the 4 integral characters to the canon, are reintroduced in their past selves during the First World War, but somehow they then get time machines, or they somehow take a time machine to their future selves in some other kind of dimension, and basically decanonize and rewrite the Call of Duty zombie story completely so that it feels like it's at a fresh start. And I have no idea what the fuck I just said. So that was weird. It's just a bunch of things. It's just a bunch of, like, ever since they introduced time travel into the story, it's become more than just some thing. It's become more than just some, like, you know, some secondary, like some tertiary game mode for Call of Duty. Like, and that's cool that they have a long running narrative like that. But if you're going to introduce time travel, you're just going to go ahead and like fuck over your entire canon. So good job. The one though that I think that I have more of a say in is the Assassin's Creed franchise. What the fuck are they doing with their time travel? Like, so the first game starts off where Desmond is looking into his ancestors' past to locate a thing in the, or like to locate some immortal object in the present. And supposedly this ancestor is the key to that. Like, they had access to it. Okay, makes sense. Now, and in the second game, they were like, yeah, so in order for us to find this object, you're gonna have to tap into this other ancestor, and not just learn from what they did, but like literally learn from, like literally like have like the skill set from that person passed down onto you, because that makes sense. That's how time travel works. And from there, in the third game, canonically, it's now interacting with ancient civilizations that are just so technologically advanced, apparently, that they've been deified. And from there, it's just a whole bunch of like this. So basically, again, as I say all of this is not how you do time travel in video games, especially with big franchises, because I don't know if anyone really keeps up with it. Like, there are hardcore Call of Duty fans who are like really invested in the zombies canon up until a certain point, I think, because it's just so insane and crazy that like it's just so insane that like you can't help but not think about it. But with Assassin's Creed, what the fuck? You establish with your main protagonist, like your main protagonist, Desmond, that like, okay, we're gonna look into your memories to get something that'll help us take over the world. Fine. But then when you introduce this whole new thing where, okay, not like you're gonna now learn from this other guy how to fight, and he just learns all of that in the span of like a couple weeks, it's a little bit young. Like that's a little bit YA protagonist of you there, Assassin's Creed. Don't think that's cool. And just the more that the universe, like the more that the lore of Assassin's Creed opens up, and you get into Abstergo and just a whole bunch of different agents, or just a whole bunch of different people looking now into their ancestors to try to find like a whole bunch of other shit. It's too much. And time travel becomes almost irrelevant at that point, because you're looking into the past. You're not necessarily changing anything because you are reliving your ancestors' memories, but at the same time, it's influencing the present, like in a way that is just so silly that it's kind of hard to comprehend anymore. So, okay, rant over.
Someone who's played like all of the Assassin's Creed games except Black Flag and Rogue, because I don't like pirates. Yeah, they really lost their way after like 2. Feels like the writers all got fired and then they hired new ones. But anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm starting to think that too.
I play it to stab people in historical settings. I don't pay too much attention to the story, I'll be honest. I am quite enjoying Odyssey, just because it's Greek myths and I get to walk around ancient Greece. And we all know that's one of my fanboy wants.
Mm-hmm. What? I'm shocked.
I know, I'm just full of surprises. Aren't you surprised that time story travel thing I just talked about doesn't involve ancient Greek gods?
And yet somehow that story still felt very in character for you.
I've become predictable. Oh no. Help. Anyways.
So I guess it's my turn. I've got 2 that I'm going to talk about. One is X-Men Days of Future Past.
More Marvel.
Is that one Marvel? I'm not entirely sure.
X-Men are definitely Marvel.
Well, in the comics, yes, but the movies,
I hear they're trying to work it into the MCU.
They are, but yeah, that is now. This was then. Anyway, Days of Future Past, where Kitty somehow has the ability to send somebody to the past, which I mean she does have in the comics, but it's never really expanded on in the movies until now. And they send Wolverine into the past, and he changes the past, and there's a new timeline that comes out, and he's suddenly smack into his body in the present. What happened to the Logan of that timeline? Where did he go? And don't act like this isn't just a way that you can retcon all of the other X-Men movies. Because it totally is. Okay. That is my rant on X-Men Days of Future Past. It doesn't make sense, and I liked the first couple X-Men movies, and yeah, now they no longer exist technically in the timeline. But my other one is Futurama. There is an episode where they end up in the past, and Fry becomes his grandfather by fucking his grandmother. That's not how genetics work.
Wait, what? He becomes his own grandfather?
Yes. So I think, okay, if you know Futurama, if you've watched it and you know all of that, Fry is in the future because he was locked in this cryogenic freezer thing. Oh, Brooke, I was talking about X-Men Days of Future Past. The one with time travel. But now I'm talking about Futurama. So, in Futurama, Fry is locked in a cryogenic freezer thing, and that's why he wakes up in the future. And that's where the story takes place. But it's because he is needed to save the world at some point. I'm not entirely sure on all the little details about it. But the reason why he is able to save the world in the future is because they end up going to the past, where he meets his grandmother and his grandfather in Roswell, New Mexico. And he is warned to stay away from his grandfather, but he doesn't. He's trying to protect his grandfather, and at one point trying to keep him from acting on homosexual or bisexual urges, but ends up leading to his grandfather's death. So then he goes to comfort his grandmother, who he's pretty sure is no longer his grandmother, because when his grandfather dies, he still exists. So he goes to comfort her. She seduces him. They sleep together. She gets pregnant, and it turns out that is his father, making him his own grandfather. Genetically, that's not possible. You do not carry the genes you would need to pass on to your parent. And I know this is Futurama, and a lot of the science doesn't make sense in it, but some of it does. And it just really, it bugs me.
I'm just really concerned about whoever came up with this plot line.
Yeah.
Why?
It's a little Alabama, ain't it?
Wow. Oh, my head hurts again.
Listen, I know literally nothing about Futurama. What?
Mm-hmm.
So,
oh my god.
I enjoy quite a bit of Futurama. Some of the humor is good. The last season was surprisingly good. Recently found out they're making 20 new episodes, which I think is a very bad idea.
Yes.
Because it ended. It ended pretty well for a show that's, a comedy show like that. But every time they do time travel, it just gets more and more unnecessary. Because it also turns out in a different time travel episode that Fry's the one that causes himself to be knocked into the cryogenic freezer and frozen. So
I thought it was that little weird pet thing that
it was him too. He gets taken back in time by that guy at one point, I'm certain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Nibbler,
he goes, he sees a vision of the past that Nibbler knocks him into the cryo freeze, so he goes back to stop Nibbler, and then Nibbler explains something to him, and then he pushes himself in. So it's it's both. It was always Nibbler, and it was always him.
Weird.
So Futurama does do perfectly secular. Yes, secular. But yeah, the genetics doesn't work.
That's also just a fucking bonker. Can you imagine going back in time and having your grandparent try to seduce you?
Yeah.
And no.
Because if I'm remembering correctly, there's a moment after they do the deed where the professor shows up and he's like, "You did the thing," and Fry is like, "She's not actually my grandmother." And then they look at her and she's knitting, and he's like, "Oh shit, she is my grandmother."
Yeah.
Wow.
I hate that.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Because they do something so well. Leela.
In there.
Sorry. Leela's backstory is really well done, and I love how they planned that out with her parents and everything. That worked so nice, and I liked it so well. But then with Fry, it's another fever dream. But that is my rant on bad time travel. Moving to Tyler.
Surprise, surprise. My own example of time travel is my own. I'm kidding. I'm not doing that again, I swear.
I believe you. I
believe you. Just damn go off. Drag yourself. I dare you.
Drag myself? I don't write that much time travel. I can't. I only write good time travel. Sorry. So I got a couple honorable mentions that I forgot. For Future Sight, a great honorable mention is actually the movie Next with Nicolas Cage. Quite enjoyed it. Very well done, Future Sight. Very interestingly planned and concepted. One of the more recent examples I've watched, which I want to talk about, is a movie called Tenet. I don't want to actually talk about the time travel in that, because I think the time machine MacGuffin blah 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 is okay. It's still a MacGuffin, yada. But the backwards and forwards cyclical works mostly. The idea of this time travel algorithm being sent back into the past and it's this weird machine thing. Oh well, more time travel MacGuffins. The thing that makes absolutely no sense is the reverse bullets and the reverse objects. I'm terribly sorry, you can't pre-shoot a bullet and pull it back into your gun through intent and willpower alone.
What?
It makes utterly no sense.
I don't even know what that means.
It's so hard to explain. So I'll use the example they use to try and exposit it in the movie, which is if you drop something, it's going forward in time. But if you yourself see an object on, say, the table, and it's one of these reversed objects, what you can do is you can reverse drop it and pick it up by, again, purely by intent. If you move your hand backwards, like you had just dropped it and then are now playing yourself in reverse, it will jump off of the table into your hand as if in the past you had dropped it. And now you see why this doesn't actually make any sense.
You're not the one that put it down.
Yeah.
That's so stupid. What?
And they try to play it like a really cool, unique concept, like, oh, this is so dangerous and you can fire bullets backwards.
What?
It's so hard to actually like fully explain. The regular time travel, the going back in time in reverse, works okay in the movie, and it's a really fun movie to watch. But I can't look over the fucking reverse bullets and shit. And watch it. It's still an interesting movie, and it's got a good little twist bit. Acting is pretty damn good in it. And then go and watch the CinemaSins episode on it. And
You're
just
recommending CinemaSins?
Why are you recommending? No.
Because they tear movies apart, and I am a deep cynic. And that is the only reason why. But yes, that is one of my very bad Tim Travel exemples. I like that you mentioned Assassin's Creed, because I had been toying with the idea earlier of like, is it time travel? Yes. There's also the fact that these beings that you interact with in the past that are these ancient civilizations are clearly outside of time, because one of them talks to Desmond through his ancestor, meaning that that being exists on an outer time spectrum, which is pseudo interesting. But again, Assassin's Creed doesn't do it well and doesn't follow its own rules. So say la vie on that. Yeah, Tenet's a mess. Another one that's a mess is, glad you mentioned Riverdale, because Sabrina was a mess. I think I know, because I've never watched Riverdale. Never going to. But I think I know exactly how Sabrina ended up in there, because the fourth season of Sabrina, plus the end of the third season, I guess, is just a hot fucking mess. Sabrina goes back in time to prevent an enemy from locking her in stone by trapping him there first in hell. So she goes back in time and does that, like, I'd say midway through season 3. And at the end of season 3, she goes back in time again to herself, about to lock that guy in stone, and says, okay, do it this way. And that way you can become the queen of hell and I can stay being a teenage girl. And then the fourth season picks up with 2 Sabrinas existing in the timeline, even though she went back and would have prevented herself in the future from doing the events that led to her on the path she is in season 4. And the show straight up says they've broken the timeline. The end of season 3 ends with a clock falling off the wall and breaking. And it's this break in the timeline that supposedly directly causes the events of season 4, which is the cosmology unraveling. which I guess is at least an acknowledgement that, hey, we've written something that shouldn't work, but then goes so far as to have the two interact again, sort of go multi-dimensional with it by bringing in other dimensions, and then finally pseudo fix it by killing off the one Sabrina that was interacted with in the past, which again should destroy the one in the future, but we're dealing with parallels, and I've spoken about Sabrina, I think, already, but it's a hot fucking mess.
Sure sounds like it.
It's season 1 was pretty okay. Season 2 was all right. 3 and 4, what the fuck?
I have a genuine request. I want to see what it's like in the writers' room for shows like Riverdale, or so basically like a CW writing room. I just want to see what happens when they run out of ideas.
I can tell you. I just explained one of them.
Yeah, and that's it happening in the show. But like, I just want to be in the writers' room when when an intern has to look at one of their bosses, says this doesn't make any sense, and they all freeze. They all realize that they've backed themselves into a corner with some stupid shit that they did in a previous episode, and now they have to try to find something to make it work.
They probably use a magic 8-ball to make most of their decisions.
I can't prove it, but I'm confident. I'm confident that what happened with the beginning of season 6 is they wanted like a cool, edgy cliffhanger to end season 5 on. So they're like, oh, what if the bomb went off? And then they were like, oh shit, that means we killed off 2 of our main characters. So then this was their way of trying to write out of it. I'm like, I can't prove it, but I'm like 100% confident this is what happened.
In the writer's room, it's just that one scene in SpongeBob's head where there's just a bunch of other SpongeBobs running around and the office is on fire.
What happened in the writer's room at the end of season 5? A bomb went off, killing all the old writers, so they just decided to replicate that.
That reminds me of the Monty Python. And then in the middle of the chase, the animator died of a heart attack, and the monster was destroyed.
Meta. I have one last example, which I realize is it's both a good and bad example. It's the entire Elder Scrolls series, which Oblivion and Skyrim, the 2 most recent ones, don't play into this too much. It's mentioned in lore. But there is one event in Oblivion where you use an Elder Scroll to specifically change the past, and only you and the character whose past you changed remember it. The Thieves Guild storyline for Oblivion, fantastic. Play it. Play the game. Pretty good. Skyrim is meh. But in the Elder Scrolls series, basically dragons are related to time, which is where Skyrim gets their time stuff from. And it's weird in Skyrim. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You use an Elder Scroll to go back in time and learn something, and you find out that the people in the past have sent a dragon into the future, which is what you're dealing with now, and then you kill him. Spoilers for a game that's almost fucking 15 years old, actually. I don't care anymore. But the Elder Scrolls series uses actually a lot of time travel, especially in the earlier games, where you have something that's called a dragon break, where basically someone fucks up the timeline so much because, again, the games are usually having pseudo choice-based endings. And so to retcon things, the dragon god Akatosh says, oh, the mortals have really fucked this world up, and there's too many things going on. Dragon break. And then the writers of the game pick a canon and say that this is now the only one that happened because the dragon god Akatosh was like, fuck it. Which is at very least an in-universe explanation for how we fucked it up. But there, that's all my mentions.
I like how
the more I learn about Elder Scrolls,
it's wild.
Yeah. Just thing. I love how you learn a whole incredibly important power from an Elder Scroll just by looking into the past. And then, oh, now you learn. Now you know.
I saw a word in a different language, and it taught me to yell really loudly. Go Skyrim. Also, the Elder Scrolls. Now I'm on Elder Scrolls. The Elder Scrolls themselves, which is what the series are named after, are magical artifacts that exist completely outside of time and reality. No one knows how many they are. They pop in and out of existence, and if you read them too long, you go fucking blind. Actually, very cool world building. And they're touched on ever so lightly here and there, and they're used as plot MacGuffins. But I digress. They're neat.
Amazing.
Alrighty, I feel like that was everything. Does anybody have anything they would like to add?
Can I shout out 2 of my favorite random ones that popped into my head as we were having this conversation?
Sure. Go for it.
The song Kagero Days. It's a Vocaloid song.
Oh, yay. Yay. More Vocaloid lore.
By the producer Gene. And it is part of the Kagero project, which is a bunch of songs and also an anime and also a manga. But this song in particular is about a time loop. It's a really fucked up time loop that the characters literally can't escape. And it's not just like one character stuck in a time loop. It's 2 characters stuck in a time loop. Basically, they're stuck on a single day. At the end of the day, one of the kids dies, and then the other one wakes up the next morning. If they try to save their friend by taking their place, the other one wakes up the same day. And so they're both stuck in this endless time loop trying to save each other. Real fucked up. It's great. Love it. Also, really random one, Time Tangled Island from Pop Tropica was always one of my favorites.
Oh my
That's
god,
all I have
that's
to say about
unlocking
it.
deep memories now. Whoa.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's it. That's all I have.
Lovely. Any other comments from anybody else? If not, I have one final question I'm going to ask everybody that I kind of just thought up right now.
Yeah, randomly. Lego Movie 2 had an unexpected time travel element to it, but I think it doesn't work because it does erase the possible future thing. And it's just funny because it's like, my friends did come for me, so I'm not like you, but his friends didn't come for him, and he's you. They came because he's you, and they didn't come for him. Boo-hoo?
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah. And Star Trek. I only watched like a couple of the old ones. I don't really care for them that much, but I do like the rebooted ones, and they rebooted because of time travel shenanigans, which doesn't like come to big play throughout them. It's just kind of like, yeah, you knew your dad, but now your dad is dead because of me. Ha ha ha. Ha ha. And oh yeah, I asked about Xmen because I did want to just say that Xmen Days of Future Past, I don't care that much for like the shenanigans that Xmen did with all of its rebooting and time line warpy multiverse shit. But I did think it was kind of cool in X-Men Days of Future Past that it was like sending the mind back, not the whole person. It was literally just Logan's current mind going back to his past body. I was like,
that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I just wish those movies didn't follow like the 10-year format. I feel like that was like, cause they picked up after Days of Future Past in like the 1980s, and it's like I wanted to know. We saw Logan getting picked up by like Mystique, who was taking the form of Stryker. I want to know where the fuck that went. That seems like a really crazy plot thread, and I just will never get satisfaction for that because I never know what the fuck happened. Regular Stryker started Weapon X anyway, so it's like, what the fuck was the point?
Yeah. We see in the Apocalypse one that he still ends up being experimented on.
Yeah, by Stryker. It's like it's so weird. Stryker starts Weapon X and has Wolverine. What was the point of having Mystique be fake Stryker if Stryker was gonna get Hogan anyway?
Yeah.
Jugo. Break your ankles.
Break your ankles.
If that is everything, I have a question I'd like to ask everybody to close off tonight, if that's all right. If you could travel in time, where would you go? Gabe?
I don't know, maybe like fuck, I don't know.
I mean, I did spring this on you guys now, so I can answer it, and then we can go
Okay,
over.
you answer first. Give me some time to think about it.
This might sound weird, but if I could travel into the future, I would go to my funeral. Partially because it would freak anybody out who saw me at my funeral, especially seeing like 27-year-old me at my funeral.
Wow.
Gaslight everyone you know into thinking you faked your death.
But somehow
you did
also,
actually die.
like, depending on at what age I died, that would be really weird, because if I die like next year, I could probably pass as my 28-year-old self. But if I died at like 90 and then they just see my people are gonna think I have some random daughter out there.
Oh yeah, they're
that's the plot of the thing that I asked about at the beginning of this.
Wow.
She fakes her own death and then is like her youthful self again.
Well, I wouldn't be faking my death. I would just be going to my funeral.
I know, but like it's like that's what people might think would have happened is what she actually did in that book.
What is this book?
It's the Splintered trilogy by A.G. Howard. They're based on like Alice in Wonderland or inspired by Alice in Wonderland, and they have some cool stuff, but I have a lot of issues with them.
Okay. Does anybody else have an answer now? Because we don't have to go in order if you don't have your answer yet. It looks like Tyler might have his.
Yeah.
I always have this answer because it's really simple for me. There's a lottery draw like every month. I'd only need to go back in time like a couple of weeks because I don't want to change my life drastically. I want to make my future just a bit better. So I just okay, suddenly get time travel. All right, hold on a second. Wait for the next really huge lottery. Numbers for that? Cool. Back in time, 2 weeks, buy that exact lottery ticket. Done.
You'd have to be careful so you bought it first before the actual winner would buy it.
I'd go right back, just back enough for when that lottery was first being, called out for numbers and go for that. Wouldn't need anything more. Yeah. I don't want to go back and change any major events. That might change the life I have. I don't want to go back and tell my past self anything strange. I like the life I live. I'm a crazy-ass hedonist. But I would prepare myself perfectly for the future.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else have an answer yet?
I go to the future just to see if anything matters.
Deep.
Holy shit, that's... Wow.
I mean, I guess.
Damn. Oh, fuck.
Well, it's just a thought in my head all the time. It's just is the world gonna end? We're gonna nuclear warfare and just stuff gonna happen? Is it worth doing what I'm doing right now because stuff is gonna end or what?
Yeah. For me, I have a serious answer and a joke. Serious answer and a joke answer. I'd want to go into the future and just serious answer first. I just want to go I want to go into the future and just hope that everything's okay. Like with my thing, with like my relationship, with my family, with my friends, just hope that everything's okay. Nothing has to be completely perfect. Like we could all be like, going through some stuff, but really just as long as everyone's okay. And as a joke answer, I'd like to go to the point in the future where I finish my book. So that either means it's at the end of this year or I'm dead.
You go into the future, get a finished copy of your book.
Yeah, and I'm gonna
bring
come
it
back.
to the
Guys,
president.
I did it.
To be fair, that's actually kind of part of a plot line in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. By like the ending, the guide itself has become kind of sentient, and the corporation that runs the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy decides that instead of producing a bunch of copies, they're just going to sell one copy, but they're going to have it be multi-dimensional. So they're just selling the same copy from every possible dimension. And that's how the later the next edition of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy works. It's actually an antagonist because it tries to kind of pseudo-delete the main characters because they fucked with the timeline.
Wow.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Wild ride.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I've been curious about it for a while. I want to read it.
It's pretty good, I will say. It can't explain any of it. No point. Just read it. It's just wild.
I will. At some point.
Alex and Gabe, do you have an answer?
I'm really tempted to just say I want to go see a dinosaur.
Oh, that's a really good one.
Nice.
I don't want to time travel. That sounds too much stress for me. So I would just go back, see a dinosaur, and then come back and never think about it again.
See what dinosaurs actually look like? That'd be cool.
Yeah, dinosaurs are cool.
Hopefully not get eaten by a dinosaur. That'd be fun. That's really grim. I'm sorry.
We never talked about the Magic Treehouse books.
We didn't.
Oh my god, yeah.
I loved those books as a kid. I learned to read off those books.
Oh, same. God damn.
Gabe,
Yes.
where would you go if you could travel in time?
I have a couple of answers.
Okay.
Number one, if I travel to the past, I'm going back to pirate era. I'm going to be a pirate. I'm going to go on a boat. I'm going to sing some sea shanties. I'm going to drink some rum that may or may not give me poison and die. And if I go to the future, then I'm going to go to the future and I'm going to keep going until I find a point in time that we got mechs, and then I will stay there. Mechs or giant robots or giant monsters or both. I will stay there. I will stay there. I will live there. That is my life now. Good. Peace out, guys. But they got robots and Godzilla. I'm going there.
A future with mech pirates.
Mech pirates. Ooh. Can you imagine? Sea shanties on a mech.
If you want mech pirates, watch Gargantia, Tales of the Verdurous Planet. Anyways, anime recommendation, mech pirates.
I watched it as well and I enjoyed it.
I have never seen this. Does this have mech pirates in it?
Yes. I enjoyed it, actually. Very interesting look at like pseudo-transhumanism.
Okay.
Nice.
Anyway,
I will add this.
Is that everything?
I have one suggestion for Dean.
Oh.
This is the episode about time travel. Make it like episode 82.
So I just have to hold off on this for like...
Name it episode 82. It's been transported into the past for everyone to listen to.
Oh. That's definitely not gonna fuck with me as I edit this.
Like my brain doesn't like that already.
I'll make this episode 0.
Yes.
That was my last suggestion.
Alrighty. Any comments, questions, or concerns before I close us off with the outro?
I was just thinking about this. This episode won't be up for like a little bit, I think. So we're recording it on thing. So we're recording it on the 9th. Because episodes are once a week now. This episode technically will be in the future. And if we listen back on this, it'll be...
These episodes are always technically in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but like it'll be our past selves listening back on this.
It'll be our future selves listening.
Literally always is.
Oh my god.
We literally recorded this episode in the past.
Oh my god, there's a... Oh, paradox.
No.
I know that's not how that works.
Alrighty then. With all that being said, let's close out for tonight. So, thanks everyone for listening, and we are the InkGuild. We are at the InkGuild on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr. Our main home is on YouTube and Spotify, but you can also connect with us individually through our own social medias. Check out our Wix if you want to learn more about us, and keep an eye out for more podcasts and other creative projects. Thanks again for listening, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.